Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Feedback Friday. This is where Tim and I review resumes and portfolios. If you're new here, add your link to whatever asset you want to share in the chat. We usually have time for the first 5 or 6 or so, depending on how the day goes. Everything is being recorded and live streamed to the greater world. That means that you don't have to take notes and you're welcome to come back and watch it at a later time. The consequence then being that everything is shared with the greater world. The benefit there, or the consequence there, is like if you have a phone number on a resume, for example, that you don't want shared, you'll either want to censor that before we look at it or showcase something different. We do this every Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I think those are all the words that I am supposed to say before getting started. Tim, any additionals that I haven't mentioned?
Yeah, some words that I'm supposed to say include that we try not to split hairs too much here. However, we are focused not on doing a portfolio roast. Many of you will be familiar with the portfolio roast, and that's just not our speed. We prefer to be a little more friendly, a little bit more collaborative. We will invite you to come on stage with us to participate, hang out, chat. That helps us get context so we can collaboratively and synergize. Kind of reach the right sort of goals and stuff to help your portfolio really accomplish what you want it to do. And we'll do our best to be kind and respectful throughout the whole thing. So if you're worried or anxious, no need to fear. We're pretty friendly.
Legend, you're asking if you can go first. You are currently first on the list. Let's go ahead and find Legend out there. It's LXG Legend.
I got him. Invite to speak. Legend, come up on stage. As our first person, we'll just do the quick little thing. If you will go ahead and share some information about who you are, what you do as a designer, or if you're not a designer, and then maybe what some of your immediate goals are. For example, are you attempting to get hired right now? Are you looking for a new job? Maybe you're just being casual. Let us know what you're doing. What's up for you?
Awesome, cool. Thank you. Good morning to everyone, and thank you, Tim and Nate, for having me. So essentially, I am in my last semester at Arizona State University in the UX designer major. So my core goal or primary goal right now is to essentially get hired, and maybe that's a far stretch to be hired before I finish the semester. But if I cannot get hired, I want to land an internship in the Seattle area.
Okay.
What a coincidental Venn diagram of Tim and I put together. Tim, of course, being a graduate of ASU, and I, of course, living in Seattle. You're like an amalgamation of us two.
That's dope.
It's a good one to be. I'm going to put this in the link. I'm going to put this link in the chat, or this chat in the link. This is to a link tree for a ASU UX designer group. So if you are trying to be part of if you're at ASU and you're looking for a group of people to hang out with who are designers, some of my friends lead this group. Very cool people. Actually, when I say some of my friends lead this group, they just graduated with master's degrees. So possibly the group is on fire and everything is bad, or maybe it's in really good hands. I don't know. But if you're looking for people, they might be a good place to be. Go ASU. Okay, so you said you were graduating from ASU. You are looking for a job. Do you know what kind of job that you're looking for right now?
I tell myself that I would like to be in a entry-level user experience design role, but after speaking to a few people and listening to various podcasts from senior designers, that role is kind of diminished, and I've been told that I should be looking for potential product design roles, and I think there are some other names that pop up, but they're just kind of escaping me right now. But I would say an entry level or junior level designer, UX design role.
I totally get that. I also understand that a lot of people are saying that role is diminishing, or at least maybe under threat right now. Well, Nate, looking at this, where should we start?
Let's see. Well, I haven't grabbed an in-depth look at the case studies just yet. As with every Feedback Friday, the first few minutes is me like taking notes and adding folk to the chat here. There are a couple of UI constraints I'm seeing. Tim, happy to let you talk about those. There is some more like foundational questions that we would typically have. Like, for example, what's your target audience? What direction are you looking for your career to go? What sort of industry are you looking to target in your career path? The hurdle there being that you're just in the midst of graduating ASU. And all of those these are great philosophical questions to know, except that for entry-level candidacy, typically fewer opinions on any of that. Do you have any opinions on any of that? Do you know?
I'd like to target the automotive industries, or interactive design, like gaming or other various forms of entertainment, where UX UI is heavily involved. But at this stage in my career, I honestly want to work wherever I can get the reps, the professional design reps. And I know that necessarily may not help my um, direction or kind of focus area, but I'm just kind of all over the place because of how new everything is.
Yeah. Tim, let me talk about positioning real fast, and I'm going to try to keep it as short as possible. And then I want to pass it over to you to talk about some of the more foundational UI things, if you think that's the right call when that time comes.
Sounds good.
Legend, what's a good name to call you by?
Oh, sorry. My name is Daishid.
Daishid, pleasure to talk with you. Have you lived in Seattle long?
No, I'm actually in Phoenix and getting ready to transition into Seattle.
Fantastic. Welcome. You are welcome here. What a great change of pace. The weather is different, and I think you're going to love it way more than the scorching hot Phoenix weather that I was going to say know and love, but it's not that. Tim, would you say you know and love Phoenix weather?
Nate, I am being recorded, but there are thoughts I have.
I understand. I understand. Let's talk about positioning here for a second, Daishid. So, one of the quandaries we have with the tech industry and the product design industry in general is, as you've mentioned, there is a narrow scope of product design positions available in the market currently. Now, this has some sacrifices and some disadvantages with entry-level folk, but also leads to some interesting, weird areas of opportunity for like positioning. So let's talk about like what is positioning, what's the goal of positioning, and like how does one tackle what kind of niche one wants to specifically target. So at a high level, positioning is the ability to build the perception in a particular target audience. And that's all it is. Positioning is a marketing utility. It's not like an actual historical account of who you are. It's just marketing. So one of the quandaries is you've got a lot of competition out there applying for all of these jobs. And if we look at your current portfolio, it is generalistic in nature. As in, this is Daishid, this is all the skill sets Daishid has. He could work for any particular industry, doesn't really matter, like hire Daishid. And that is awesome when their market doesn't have much competition. So now the hurdle is, well, we've got other folk applying for these jobs, and these guys specialize in particular industries. So if you're applying for a tech job at Amazon, for example, there'll be people that specialize in that. Therefore, if you apply for that job, these other people are going to have an advantage because Amazon's going to perceive them as more specific to them and higher value for them. So then the question is, well, like how can we narrow Daishid's positioning and target audience so you outbid other people when you're applying for roles? You've already mentioned automotive. What a phenomenal target audience that is. So now we could say, well, let's position Daishid around automotive. Let's specifically talk to that target audience. We can learn more about their needs, hurdles, desires, interests. And then we can relocate your case studies in your portfolio to specifically mention them. That has a consequence. That means that you can no longer apply for those Amazon jobs or any of the other jobs out there that aren't relevant to automotive. But the response to that is often, well, I don't want to disclude those jobs, so let me go back to generalizing so I can apply for them too. But keep in mind, there are other candidates out there that specialize in those jobs. So no matter what, it always makes more sense for you to specialize, even when it disqualifies you from other roles. There are tricks that we can do to help resolve some of that friction point, but let me pause there. At a high level, How are you feeling about that rhetoric so far? Is all that making sense, or is any challenges with any of that?
It's making a lot of sense.
Cool. All right, dope. So now we just have to figure out how to position you best for automotive. We're going to sacrifice the rest of the industry out there, and we're going to build you that niche. Now, the huge benefit of a niche is it reduces the amount of competition available. As in, getting a niche and getting a specific position to target audience, the problem that we're trying to solve is high competition. So now the goal is to niche down as far as we can go where competition no longer exists. And that's the market opportunity. Automotive is a great one. Like, I don't know of many folk out there that are attempting to target automotive. So I love that. Love that for you. Tim, that's where I'd want to hand it off. How are you feeling about next steps there? Is UI the next step, or you want to talk about value prop or in case studies, anything like that?
Yeah, I would just reiterate what's been said about positioning. The incredible thing about choosing a position or a niche is that it gives you power to curate and tell your story to specific people that you want to appeal to. And once you know who you're trying to appeal to, you can make that story really connect all the dots between them and you become a perfect candidate. When you try to appeal to too many audiences at the same time, though, you end up falling in the middle of them, which is one of the lowest spots to be competitively, because then you're invisible, you look just like everyone else, and your ability to stand out really goes away. So just as Nate was saying, choosing a position is a super powerful thing to do, and something we encourage people to at least think about. Not everyone's going to choose a position such as niched as automotive, or maybe working with Apple Watch, or maybe even like going into healthcare or something. But often choosing these battlegrounds does then give you the roadmap to say, what is next for me? When we're speaking of your portfolio, beyond just a positioning statement, I do think there's going to be some challenges that you face when you apply to jobs. If we look at our job cycle, and let's just do, if we do like a super quick outline of like what it's like to apply jobs. Typically, you apply to a job, that job application goes to something called an ATS, which is an applicant tracking system. We'll probably talk more about this later. It gets reviewed. There's a reviewer. We often call this a recruiter. After this recruiter stage, it typically goes to a manager, which is like second reviewer. And then from this second reviewer, it goes into something, and everything's a little bit different, but something like a team lead, someone on the team who is kind of owning the role. And then from there you go so on. When we look at like, and I will just draw boxes for this. This is you, apply to the job, reviewer. It's a terrible box. I'll try again. Yeah, can you tell I'm a designer by the way my lines are drawn? So good. Look at that box.
Tim is using a trackball mouse, by the way.
Okay. Don't expose me. It's great. I'll recommend it to anyone. I'll tell you my stories about trackball mice. When you're looking at applying to a job, the ATS is going to check something for keywords. This is your keywords. This is where that positioning often matters and like standing out. And then this human reviewer over here, their job is to vibe check you, vibe check the work. This recruiter or reviewer does not know much about being a designer. They don't recognize necessarily what sets good designers apart from bad designers beyond the keywords. But they do have eyes and they have eyeballs. And so they'll look at your resume, they'll go to your website. And when they go to your website, they're going to do a vibe check. If the work of your website passes the vibe check, they'll hand you off to the next person. This next person will also vibe check your website. And remember, they don't necessarily know a lot about being a designer, so their ability to like read the copy, to understand the in-depth, the work that's being communicated, it's more challenging for them. But if they vibe check you and you pass, then you go over to the team lead person. And this is where craft comes into play. Because at this stage, this is when someone is really taking the time to look at your work, if they look at your portfolio and then talking with you. I'm a little concerned for your particular website that you may not pass the vibe check. And the reason I think you might not pass the vibe check is there's just a couple of things that very obviously cause friction for people. So just for example, we have buttons that are difficult to see or don't work. Like this about button doesn't really do any work. the C button work, or C work button, C button work button, C, that one, the one I'm talking about, doesn't work either. And I think that these are just things that might signal to someone that you're not as experienced or as senior as they might want you to be, especially in the day where AI can also create websites and has like some weird tells and catches. Someone may mistake this for an AI website instead of it being someone who's working inside a Webflow, a very respectable platform, by the way, and just still in the process of setting things up correctly. And then going down here, we can also see things are maybe not quite in alignment correctly. We have a couple of different. Here, let me just make sure this. Like we have different margins in a couple of different places. Things kind of feel a little bit stretched. It's maybe a little bit more obvious that you designed this for mobile. Like when I'm looking at this in the mobile version, things fit a little bit better. Not perfectly, but a little bit better, especially in your case study. Like this, there's some challenges here in mobile, but it is like consumable content versus in desktop mode. It's maybe a little bit weirdly isolated to this left side.
Right.
So there's some design choices that may not pass your vibe check, even though the work that you have in here could be extremely valid and might even be the exact kind of work that they're looking for. They just won't have the ability to recognize it. Saying all that, of course, that's a lot of information. How does that feel to you? Is there anything there that kind of resonates, or you're like not quite on?
No, it again it tracks. I know that the portfolio or the website needs more tweaking and it needs to be perfected. I'm still kind of ironing out some of the kinks.
Okay, cool. I'm glad that works for you, because I'd agree 100%. Now, what I'll also caution you against, and Nate will get on my case for this if I don't say this. So to avoid Nate kicking me in the shins all the way from Seattle, which he's got a great kick, guys. He can kick pretty hard in the shins. To avoid this, I'll just say design visually is really important, especially for passing this vibe check stage, right? But just notice that this vibe check stage, it gets you in the door, because this is where like real interviews happen, right? And once you get into this real interviews, things looking cool is not enough to like win the interview. You have to be able to talk through your process, and you have to have words that really matter. And so we'll often see that like bad UI will tank your application.
Mm-hmm.
And strong writing can save medium UI, right? So this is the principle. You need to have good enough UI inside your website to pass any checks of reviewers or people who don't understand what designers do quite yet. But you also need to focus on writing, because the writing is the part that appeals to people who focus on the craft. And when you're in these interviews, having strong writing and storytelling is like your number one fallback. So that way you are not just getting in the door, but you're also winning those conversations. You're getting to the table and you get to express yourself and talk about your process and why you are the greatest designer in the whole world, because surely you are, my friend.
I struggle with at this stage. Yes, the UI needs work, but I am personally struggling with tracking impact and being able to communicate impact of my like research and essentially validating my um, ideas or designs, like the validation stage.
Nate, you want to take that?
I don't know how to effectively anymore. So the hurdle is, Daishid, the hurdle is Tim and I have all kinds of rhetoric in regard to how one goes about measuring impact and validating that a case study is targeting recruiters and hiring managers correctly by talking about impact. The quandary is there are a lot of different ways to do it, and the common critique and feedback is I'm a designer, I worked on this thing, and I don't know how to validate impact. Tim and I have been working on methods of best communicating this, but the current strategy I have is if you were to imagine yourself a linear graph, hopefully Tim can draw it for us here. If you're imagining a linear graph, on the left side of this graph, we've got aesthetic, as in like not valuable. And the goal here is to find things that measure value. So aesthetic on the left side, and on the right side, we have, like, we'll just call it value. Then in the close to the right side, we would have like financial metrics. And that's about as beneficial and most impactful as metrics can be. Like, it directly involves the money. If you can find a way to measure that, perfect. A lot of folk can't. Us in the product design space typically struggle aligning and figuring out exactly what financial metrics are and like how it correlates to our efforts. Then directly left of finance metrics, I would probably put something like behavior change. And Tim and I have quabbled over like how we define behavior change and like what exactly behavior change looks like. But we can both somewhat agree that like if we can find a way to measure outcomes, even if it's one step down from financial metrics, outcomes are still a phenomenal thing to measure impact on. And when I say outcomes, I'm describing like what are the behaviors that have changed thanks to your efforts in utilizing their services? What are users now doing differently because their problem has been solved in this way? So, like, and I give you an example at my 9 to 5, I work in the healthcare space. We work in agile space, so every iteration comes with its own success metrics. But some of the success metrics I've used in the past are things like analysts no longer have to utilize Excel to validate particular claims within the adjudication space. You don't have to know what it means in the healthcare stuff, but like we're measuring a behavior that has shifted thanks to my efforts in the product space. How are you feeling about that rhetoric? Are you feeling like you might be able to go back to your case study and then disclose and communicate what behaviors have changed thanks to your efforts?
Yes, I think I can definitely go back to the drawing board
Okay.
and you know, work things out a bit better.
That's great. In that graph that Tim was drawing, there are other things we could put on that graph, for example, like testimonials would be left of behavior change, like anecdotal stuff. Left of that would be UI designs. And the idea is like these are all things that could theoretically measure impact, but we want to get as right on this graph as possible. The closer we can get to value, the better. And then if we don't have that, we just scoot one to the left over and over. Is that making sense? Am I describing? I have to make a graphic for this, is really what I'm learning.
The value is the prize, is the goal, is what I'm communicating your value.
Right. Yeah. And then
And
we can, the tactics of communicating value include financial metrics, but when in doubt, if you don't have that, you scoot left and then you go to outcomes, you scoot left. If you don't have that, you scoot left to testimonials. If you don't have that, you scoot left to UI design changes. You get the idea.
got it. Yes.
I am looking at the clock. I think actionables for you at a high level, we can work on your value prop. Like now that we know you're targeting automotive, I would love your terminology on your website to specifically target automotive. And the barometer of success you can use here is if we can take the vocabulary on your portfolio, like your value prop, for example, and we can put it on somebody else's portfolio, it should no longer make sense for them. So that's your barometer for success. Like your current value prop, we could put on my portfolio and it still totally makes sense. Therefore, your value prop is too generalistic and not differentiating you from other candidates. So that's actionable one. Work on vocabulary that targets your target audience and then build case studies for that target audience. And then I think actionable number 2 is work on some of that UI stuff. That sounds like you're already aware of it. It just needs a little bit of effort and it sounds like you're on top of it.
Thank you. Awesome, guys. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah. Tim, any
I'll
last
speak.
words?
Yeah, I'll speak really quickly. I'm just kind of upping the quality of this chart just a tiny bit. But we often see designers assume that doing the work, this work done, this would be like, oh, I did research with, for example, talked to 5 users or maybe 30 users. And that is valuable, but it does lean more towards the vanity because it doesn't quite actualize on value for the business.
Right.
This is because we talk about perceived value, right? This is value for the product that you're working on and how you measure that outcome. And so I would say if your portfolio relies on your value as someone who has done work before, that is important to talking about why you're valuable. But this is more of a conversation piece to introduce the next part of it. And in a perfect case study, you would say, this is the work I did to achieve this outcome from our users, which then connected to this business or revenue goal for the product. And because these appeal to all 3 different audiences, right? When you think about a recruiter uses a job description to measure designers. They use keywords. They don't necessarily know what makes a good designer, but they do have a laundry list of things that they have to fulfill. And so talking about the work that you've done matches that job description and will help you here with the recruiter. However, once you get to the craft message, craft people want to know if it worked, right? If I was a design lead, I don't necessarily want to know, did you do research? I want to know, what did you do with that research? So this is like your team leads, your team leaders, they want to hear about the behavior change and the user actions. And so having this in your portfolio also helps a lot. But there is eventually some people you need to talk to, which is HR, CEO, executive levels, and like higher up leadership who wants to say, well, they made the users do this work, but how does this actually impact our business? Why should we give more money for this person? And being able to connect your work to business goals and wins can seal the package. And so you'll see that as you kind of go up, you definitely need all three of these touch points.
Yeah.
And the higher up the ladder you can get, the better, and typically the more senior your power and positioning is.
Makes sense.
That's
Makes
my caveat. Yeah.
Daishid, really appreciate you being willing to hop on and hang out with us for the first on the list today. Appreciate the bravery there, and it's been a pleasure talking with you.
No, the pleasure is all mine. Thank you, Tim and Nate. I appreciate you guys, and I'll definitely stay in touch with the group.
Yeah, sounds great. Tim, next on the list, we've got Luna, who we've chatted with before. I'm excited to talk with Luna again.
I am too. Luna, let me get you up here. Just scrolling through the chat real quick. Scroll.
I've got.
I see you. Okay, Luna,
Okay.
come on up. Okay. Luna, will you
Hi,
go ahead and
Dan.
introduce yourself? Hello. Will you go ahead and introduce yourself to us? Tell us a little bit about what you do. Just give us a reminder and then kind of state some of your goals and what you're hoping to accomplish.
Okay, so I am a UI UX / product designer. I have been working for like 3 years. My real name is Yusra. I have mostly worked in B2B SaaS projects and some website projects, and I basically am trying to look for better opportunities and improve my work, and also to narrow down my niche, because I have like worked in different domains, websites and product and social media and graphic design and branding stuff. So I really want to kind of narrow down my work, but at the same time I enjoy taking like different kind of projects.
Oh no.
Luna, you still
Luna.
there, or did we lose you?
Come back. Come back to us.
Sorry. So yeah, that's me. That's not my resume. If this is what yeah, this one is.
Did I have the wrong website?
I think you did.
But it says Luna.
Yeah, because someone.
It's someone who's stealing her identity.
Oh.
It's someone. Identity theft's a real thing, Nate. And someone is taking the good name of our friend Luna.
Hey, add that.
No, I'm
into the
pretty sure
chat
there's
if you don't mind.
only one Luna in this whole world. And it's,
Oh, never mind. I've got
it's
it.
the one we're
Wild.
Okay.
identified in this Discord in this economy. Okay, well, great. Let's do
It's my
this.
nickname.
Yeah, let's do it. So you said it's Yusra?
Yusra.
Yusra.
Yeah.
I am really bad with names. That is a me problem, not a you problem. But me, as I struggle with my problem, as I make it everyone's problem today, just please feel free to correct me. So that way I embarrass myself the least, but also don't misname anyone. Okay. Where should we start with this, Nate? Where should we take this?
I may have missed it, Yusra. Did you mention what level you were, what product, what title you were targeting?
Product design, I would say.
And do you know what elevation? Junior, mid, senior?
I would say like I'm still at a junior level because I've been switching between different projects.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, I do have like 3 years of experience.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, fantastic. One of the big takeaways I've had so far is that I don't know that I've ever seen an outlined typeface. Tim, have you seen outlined typefaces before on the web? This is a new thing for me.
I have, Nate. Yes, I have.
The way you said that with a tone like I've been under a rock for some time.
Nate, I think you've been under a rock for some time.
Excellent. Chat, let me know if you've all seen outlined typefaces before. You're doing a
Chat,
lot of
let
stuff.
Nate know that he's been living under a rock for some time.
Come at me in the chat. We'll see what happens. I have band powers, just saying. You're doing a lot of things on your portfolio here really well. Like there's a lot of really cool storytelling going on. 3+ years experience, years building interfaces people don't hate. CS trained developer, fluent, faster handoffs, no figure it out in dev moments. Okay. And then
Personality, spunky.
yeah, so let's see. When it comes to we typically talk about 3 audiences: recruiters, hiring managers, and then peers. I think you're targeting peers particularly well. There's a lot of character here, a lot of personality, and a lot of really fun things to look at. Now, am I understanding correctly? Am I just seeing the single case study on your portfolio, or am I missing something?
Okay, so it's basically a work in progress. But if you click on each, it will land you to a Figma prototype and some to an actual website, live website.
Ah,
So this is what I've done so far. So now you can see the case study for each
so
project.
I can tell you the friction point I was having. I'm running Firefox. This might be the same for Chromium-based browsers, but because
Okay,
the case studies are sticky to the footer, I thought I had hit the bottom of the page. I didn't realize there was more to scroll.
okay.
And my gosh, there's plenty more to scroll. Look at all these fun things. Okay, cool. So more than one case study. Dope. I'm not seeing any specific low-hanging fruit. Like we could certainly talk more about the value prop. And you mentioned that you were wanting to focus more on like how one goes about finding a niche. There's certainly a conversation
Yeah.
there. It's a deeper one. Tim, any low-hanging fruits you're seeing that I'm missing?
So I think Yusra had said that she is trying to find her niche. And then there's also the element of, is she communicating across effectively and being appealing for a product designer role? Now, when I'm on your site, what I do appreciate is that you are communicating lots of value. Like you have lots of things here that would point out value stylistically. I think there's some great stuff happening here. It is a hand-rolled website, probably means a little bit AI assisted at least, which is totally fine. Nothing wrong with that. But I will say there are a couple elements that just stand out as being particularly AI that I would flag concern for, and that I think also align with the other goals. For example, if you want to be seen as a product designer, you should label yourself as product designer, which you have done here in this little eyebrow header. However, eyebrow headers like this, one, are very common in AI design work. And so this may introduce your website as being more AI design centric than you would want it to. Additionally, it's also a very small label here. And I would love for this identity to be a little bit stronger, even repeated down here. So like saying like 3+ years as a product designer, building interfaces people don't hate. For you, that might be a stronger introduction because it helps anchor exactly what you do and who you are. Which means that for people, we were just looking at this previously, there are people who will look at your portfolio who are literally like truly honestly doing their best to just vibe check stuff and like, is this a real person? And one, making sure it doesn't feel like an AI website is really important because they're like, is this an AI that's doing stuff? Are we about to hire a scam? Or additionally, does this person actually match the job brief? And including maybe an improvement there would help a little bit. You do have your buttons here, CTAs, view work and touch. Love the pink. It's so bold. It's very fun. You do have some numbers over here. If you remember, we were talking just about like the vanity looks versus perceived value. Sometimes numbers like these can be a little bit more on the vanity side. And when it gets to this more sort of vanity looks area, if it's by itself, it can look like trying a little too hard. And I might worry that including these numbers here will definitely, like, not unimpressive, may undermine you accidentally by making people think about what they mean and then getting kind of off track from the plot, which is that you are a product designer and you're the perfect product designer for these people who are looking at your website. So just from like a landing point of view, I'd worry about that. Then the very last thing I'll say about your landing, you can take this, remember, I'm just a guy, right? So you can totally disregard my opinion on this, but humans in psychology tend to have a sticky memory for visuals, especially human faces. It turns out, surprise it or not, our brains are really optimized to remember faces of other people. You may even hear people like me say, I have a hard time with names, but I always remember a good face. And so including, or just any face, I don't know why I had to say good, but we always remember a face. It is sometimes helpful to include a face or a portrait or some other like strong visual identity piece here at the top in your landing page, because it helps to create like a visual marker or a bookmark for people, and they think of that visual and they think about your website. And so you become a little bit more memorable rather than a landing page that has just text on it, a strong text perhaps, but is just text. That visual can communicate something strong and important to people's brains, and they remember you a little bit better. It goes both ways though, because sometimes people make judgments based on images that they shouldn't, but at the same time, you do become a little more memorable. And so I recommend choosing a professional portrait out there.
There's another benefit with a professional portrait, and this is a quandary that my own website would struggle with if I didn't have a picture there, and that is my website's dedicated to agile healthcare in an enterprise space. Without my picture, it looks like I'm selling a service as a piece of software. With my photo, it looks like I'm now selling a product designer. So it easily differentiates between those two things quickly. Positioning, finding a niche. Let's talk about this. Tim, pull up designshapes.com. Tim and I have worked on and built a utility with a goal of helping folks figure out their positioning. So you'll notice in the top of the website, we've got the navigation menu. You can select the Find Your Positioning link up there, and I'll add a link in the chat here for folks to be able to hop in there. So what's interesting about positioning and finding a niche is you, Yusra, probably have more opinions here than you know. So what's fascinating about this is, like, if I were to come to you and say, like, hey, what kind of industry do you want to target? What kind of flavor designer do you want to be? You probably have more opinions about this that you didn't realize were potentially controversial or potentially opinionated in some fashion. So what this is going to do is going to force you to answer some of those questions. For example, do you perceive yourself as a specialist or a generalist? Do you prefer an individual contributor role, or do you prefer more leadership managerial roles? Would you prefer being on a design team working with other UX designers, or would you prefer being on a product team working with analysts and developers and product managers, typically more agile teams? And these sliders carry on, forcing you to make those decisions. Now, as Tim walks us through those sliders, he'll slide them randomly here for a second, and then we'll get to the next section, which are like landscapes you want to operate in. Oh yeah, and actually, Tim, I'm so glad you hit that. There's a trade-offs accordion there that showcases, like, here are the advantages and disadvantages with each of these sliders, because each one has sacrifices associated with them. And sacrifices are good. They force you to constrain your marketing efforts. Excellent to know. Next up is going to ask you, like, what industries you want to be perceived in. Tim, go ahead and choose healthcare for the time being. And then if we scroll down, it'll also ask you for personal things about you. So the next section down, the evidence that makes you you. And here, all of these are optional, but the more specific you can be, the better. And you can also link directly to your current portfolio, and it'll parse some of that data and attempt to build it for you. All this to say, after Tim's done, he's going to select the Generate My Positioning Kit. And the goal here is to give you some sort of barometer by which you can build your niche out of. So it's going to generate a value prop. It's going to generate a bio for you. And the objective there being, it's going to, like, at least give you some sort of starting point. So at this point, the value prop is B2B product designer who built Amazon Health, now helps growth stage healthcare startups ship foundational products. And the easy barometer for success here is, like, that's a statement we cannot put on my portfolio and have it make sense to me, right? That's going to be specific enough to you that differentiates you. And that'll at least get you in the ballpark. Not to suggest that this utility is like going to be the perfect value prop for you, but it's going to point you in the right direction. How are you feeling about that? Do you feel like you've got the ability to go in there and potentially start building some sort of niche within that utility?
Yeah, I can definitely try that, but um, I'm not sure, like considering the current job market and the way that things are changing rapidly with AI and everything. Um, what is going to be the future of these jobs in the future? So, what if I niche down to something and I struggle, and then I'm not open to other things? So that is one concern that I have.
You could not have
But
asked a better question to better synchronize the segue into step number 2. I love that you've asked this question. So the quandary is building a niche has a major advantage of reducing competition with a major sacrifice of being a risk in regard to industry. Like, let's say the industry that we're working on, that you niche down in, let's say that industry collapses for some reason. You are now
yeah,
in a weak position because you've specialized in that area. Tim, I'm going to ask you to go. I don't even know if you've seen this yet, Tim. Head over to my website, nabauer.com. And what I'd like to show you, Yusra, is an example of how we can niche down in multiple ways. Because remember, the goal here is marketing. We're trying to build perceptions of you, not actually define who you are. So here's my website. This is niched down as extreme as I can get. Targeting healthcare. My color theme is white, blue, and gray. Like everything about this site is dedicated toward targeting the target audience of healthcare. This disqualifies me from applying for other roles. Now, you'll notice in my value prop there, enterprise healthcare agile design, specifically the word healthcare. This is website number 1. This is nabauer.com. Tim, head over to natebauer.io. When this loads up, you'll find it's loading the exact same website. The content here is almost exactly the same, except now some vocabulary has changed. We're now targeting, so in this particular case, we can see my value prop has changed, enterprise scale. So in this particular case, natebauer.io is more generalistic, but the ideal circumstance would be here is if I could target multiple different niches at one time. The goal there being I can build a perception that Yusra is targeting finance. Then when I apply for this other job, I can build a perception that Yusra is targeting legal. When I apply for this other job, we can build a perception that Yusra is targeting healthcare. How are you feeling about that? Is that making sense to you? Do you feel like you've got some ability to build multiple niches and then A/B test which one is most effective for the market?
yeah, I do have like 2, 3 different portfolios for the same reason, like on my Figma. But yeah, this was like I was already considering it. So for like more branding and creative stuff, I can have like a different website or maybe Behance or whatever. And for product design, having like a completely different targeted website makes more sense. So yeah.
Yeah,
Is
and keep in
making
mind that the
sense.
website we're looking at here, this is not 2 websites. This is the exact same website. And if I were to update one, all the .coms
Just
would update. It's just there's some intelligence built in where the vocabulary changes depending on the .com. So you don't have to have multiple websites if you don't feel like it.
I'll offer a slightly different perspective because I do think for some people having multiple websites isn't always great, especially when you are maybe applying to lots of jobs or etc. And even when you're thinking about like maybe yourself personally as like an individual, you're like, well, should I really niche my skill sets, whether or not I communicate that across? The way you'll see me draw these mountains constantly drawing this like mountain with a flag on top of it. And this is because I'm of the strong mind that to make a strategy, like in general, strategy is just making a decision. And that strategy, whenever you make a decision, it's between one choice or another choice. And so I think you always have the option to go up or down a mountain. And you can't be on top of two mountains at the same time. It's just not, it's like not possible. But once you have niched like perfectly, you're at the top of this individual mountain for that niche. For example, this could be product design, right? If you're at the top of the product design mountain, it means that you're not at the top of the UI design mountain or the UX design mountain, right? There's a difference in where you are and how you're communicating your skills. But I find that this is often more powerful than less powerful. Because even if you were to say product design goes away or UI design goes away because of artificial intelligence, being at the top of this gives you the biggest vantage point. It also gives you the most depth in this industry. It also gives you like the best position. There might be lots of people who are like 50% UI design, 50% product design. They will be lower down the mountain than you are. You're going to stand out first. You're probably going to be the person who lasts a little bit longer. Your skills are going to be stronger than all of the generic, generalized intelligence because your intelligence is very product specific. Additionally, you're going to have something called verticals. And this is probably the wrong moment to talk about verticals in depth, but just to say that like even as you lean into these labels for like UI design or product design, you also have backgrounds, you have certain taste perspectives that you can lean into as well that make you essentially like an I don't want to say like an acquired taste, but like a different like kind of like a flavor of designer. And that becomes a preference, right? If you think about food, if you wanted like one food that everyone loves equally, sometimes it becomes very plain because it's very safe instead of becoming something that becomes a cult favorite, right? Like not everyone loves Rocky Road ice cream, but people who love Rocky Road ice cream really, really love Rocky Road ice cream. And so you get the opportunity to basically become the favorite flavor for some people, even if you're not the right flavor for every single person. I know that choosing a niche can sound really scary because you intrinsically close off doors. But at the same time, I think we should also look at it as a little bit relieving in the sense that now the number of people you have to win the hearts of and the minds of is also reduced a lot. You no longer have to make the entire world want to love you at the same time. Just some specific people, and now you know exactly what their goals are. You got to know what kind of stories they're looking for, and you can lean into those things more broadly. And very, very quickly, last thing before I jump off the soapbox, as AI comes more and more into our industry, I think it's really, really important that we recognize there are people who are saying that design or like this industry in general is going away for one reason or another. And I think one thing that they often neglect to say is that just because they're like I guess there's a point of view that as AI becomes more, designers become less. That makes sense. It's terrible, right? Um, as AI becomes more, designers become less, right? Like there's going to be less designer jobs, or designers are going to be less powerful. But I think we actually have the opportunity to reverse the statement that as AI becomes more, designers become more empowered, right? Now designers can do more activities. Designers used to have to design on like paper. We used to draw things on paper, and we used to draw things inside Photoshop. And you know, you're pretty limited when you have to draw a website inside Photoshop. And then we have tools like Figma. Figma gives us the ability to draw interface at scale, to have systems that empower us. And now we're looking at a new surface, which could be code, it could be AI. And as you approach this tool of saying, well, now we're not just designing on paper, or we're not just designing on side of a canvas. What if we're designing inside code? And this transition can be more empowering than I think a lot of people accept or immediately think it is. We can do more, we can branch out, it can broaden the skills that we have as long as we're staying in charge of it, and we're directing with taste. And that is also complicated. And if anyone's feeling like that's challenging, just know it is challenging for all of us. Okay. If anyone says like it's very easy or it's not complicated, they're definitely lying and or just misguided, I guess. I don't know. But it is difficult, and I think we should recognize that. But it is not impossible, and design is not, it's not dead, even the niches of design. That's my soapbox. I'm done.
Yusra, how are you feeling about everything? Is all that making sense? Have they been gone the entire time? Tim's just been on a soapbox to no one?
No,
Okay.
I was listening. But yeah, it does make sense, but at the same time, it is scary. But we have to live with it. But yeah, I do believe that design is not dead, because I don't I don't like AI designs. Like,
Oh no.
It's
It's either the
possible.
longest pause. Yeah.
Yusra, we hear pauses from time to time and we perceive you not being there. I think your headset's just dying or something of that nature. Uh-oh.
can we move to can you guys hear me? Like,
Yeah. Okay. We can hear you now. It's only recently that it's kind of been in and out. It's just a little intermittent.
Well, Yusra, I'm looking at the clock. How are you feeling? Do you feel like you've got some actionables to take away from and attempt to
yeah,
better
but
some of your stuff here?
I also wanted feedback on my case study, if you can just quickly go through it.
Let's do
Like,
a quick
any
glance.
one.
Which one you want to take a look at?
First one. Well,
You can
password
go
protected.
to
Okay. Second one.
the second
Not
one.
password
Yeah.
protected.
Also, I wanted to ask what is the best approach to kind of show your work, which is like which has like an NDA, but you still want to showcase some of the things.
Happy to talk
Whoa.
about that. That's a bit of a conversation. And I'm looking at the clock and we've only got just like a couple minutes to before we move on to the next one.
Okay.
Would you rather talk about NDAs or would you rather talk about your case study?
Let's talk about the case study first. Yeah.
Cool. And then the quick TLDR on NDAs is review your NDA to make sure to understand what you can and cannot talk about. Not NDAs or not all NDAs are equal. You may not have even I want to validate you even signed one in the first place. But get a copy of your NDA and review the terminology and stipulations.
Okay.
Okay. Let's do this rapid fire. Okay. So first of all, landing on, I assume that one day you're going to move this portfolio, this case study onto your actual website. So it is self-hosted. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect. With that in mind, let's just focus on the content. Titles are very difficult, but one of the top things we recommend to people is write titles that describe the case study in one sentence and talk about the most important thing, not the name of the project. So for example, instead of saying audience builder, you might say tool that builds things for marketers increasing value for product platform by $5 million, right? So you're telling a mini story inside the title that basically tells someone what to focus on. And this is like giving someone a lens or kind of giving them like a little bit of a bias. If you bias someone towards a case study that is valuable and powerful, it lets you start to craft a story around that and to help them understand why you are valuable because you're the person doing this. So you can set the stage up. Then we have our UI here. It's nice, it's clean, nothing crazy. I don't think it needs to be anything crazy either. You have some of your main things here. This is very important for, again, when we're talking about recruiters. Recruiters are looking for a list of items that basically match their list. If they're like, yeah, this team has a developer, it has a project manager, it has a client, it needs Figma and Miro, perfect. Like this person checks all the boxes. At a craft level, this doesn't end up mattering. And so if you're looking for very senior roles, these things can kind of go away. But at a junior or kind of like mid-level, these things can be very important. Overview, we do have your overview. Same thing about these titles here. Instead of describing what the section is about, like about the project or objective of the project, just put like a one sentence, like a very short sentence that is this thing. So instead of saying about the project, just say audience builder enables users to input brand product info and get AI output, right? That would be a great title right here, because that is basically a one sentence summary of the project. Then you use the paragraphs afterwards to give me a little bit more detail and go farther in. I'll stop commenting on that because I suspect that'll be the same thing for objective and for all of these titles, but titles everywhere, making them a little bit more descriptive. Nate, do you want to throw your hand in the ring? Is there something that you're seeing you would love?
There's certainly things I'm seeing, Yusra, and the hurdle I'm having is there's a good amount of opportunity for improvement on this, which is awesome because those are like there's some really awesome low hanging fruit. We could spend a little bit of effort maximizing and like blooming this case study into something awesome. What you've got here is a phenomenal draft, and I love where Tim's describing leaning into the storytelling. That's going to help recruiters and hiring managers dramatically. I'm tempted to like, there's the outline of a case study I'm tempted to cover, but I think if there were one low hanging fruit that would help you iterate right now, I would love to see an iteration on the problem statement section. Tim, scroll down a bit to the problem statement. And the reason I'm honing in on this section is because the problem is the very first question I'm looking to have answered in a case study. I have 3 questions. What's the problem you're trying to solve? How did you go about solving that problem? How did you validate that the problem was solved? How did you validate success? Everything relies on that for that problem statement. So like as I scroll through your case study, I can look, oh, here's artifact A, and now I can like, how does that artifact go out to solving the business problem that Yusra mentioned earlier? And without understanding the problem, the rest of the case study is abstract. The quandary with your problem statement is currently that it's not a problem. So you're describing marketing teams need an MVP of an AI-powered audience builder and then you have some features here that you're looking for. This is a solution. This is the solution to some sort of business problem, but I don't know what the business problem is. And that problem could be something like the organization is failing at lead generation and losing revenue to competition. Like that's a core business problem that enables me to understand, oh, here are all the things that Yusra is doing to attempt to solve that business problem. And that's what hiring managers are looking for. The rest of the case study then falls into place because it's all circling back to that problem that we're trying to solve. How are you feeling about that? Do you feel like you might be able to go back and specifically iterate what the problem here is?
Yeah, so basically it was a tool that I built for like creating audiences, targeted audiences for the marketers. So it takes like a lot of times, and marketers have to juggle between different tools to kind of create targeted audience specifically. So this was about that. So yeah, definitely I can work on the copy.
I love that story. Like that's an awesome story that I'm not seeing in your case study just yet. And it sounds like at first glance, the problem is more along the lines of marketers don't understand their target audience and are losing sales. Like that's a real core business problem. And I would love to see some of that story. There is so much more we could talk about. We've got to move on to the next one, but do you feel like you've got some stuff that you can start working on? And then I would love to see you come back for a future Friday. Is that okay?
This was really helpful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I really appreciate the
definitely
time.
have a lot of things, and yeah, likewise. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm sorry I cut you
I
off
will
there.
say too, I will say, I know this is probably the brief that you were given, like exactly. And there might be a part of your brain that's like, this is exactly what they told me to do. How do I make a problem that's not literally exactly what they told me to do? And this is where storytelling becomes pretty important, like being able to try to read between the lines. Even if you say, like you have right here, simply put, users struggle to consistently generate high quality exportable audience segments using existing tools. That's a great problem statement right there. Well, it's at least the beginning of a problem statement. So you could just take this whole line right here, boop, and just put that right there. So instead of saying problem statement, just copy that, paste it into this thing up here where it says problem statement, and then talk about why you know this to be true or what clues there are, maybe some of the impact of this, right? You might say, for example, whatever the client is, you might say, client wants to help users do this sort of thing, It's noticed that users aren't being able to accomplish this. Competitors have new features that are also cutting into margins. So the team was focused on trying to resolve this business problem by bringing back users or improving the experience for users overall to stay competitive. And that just reframes and packages like why you think this is a requirement, right? So if you're enabling users to generate targeted audience segments, this probably means that there's a problem with how audience segments are working, or that there's a gap there. Like you might say, like the business wants this feature because users are asking for it or competitors have it. And then you can rewrite that as the problem statement. And then when you start writing like what does our team decide to do about it, you perfectly set yourself up. It's like the meme where it's it's like a person putting a medal on the same person in front of them. And it's like you set yourself up perfectly because you describe a problem that you then have the perfect solutions for that are basically A and B, two peas in a pod work together. And that really makes your story feel cohesive. So with that little bit in there, let's graphic design is my passion. Thank you, Tanmay. Thank you for throwing that out there. Just in case anyone forgot, graphic design is all of our passions. You know what? I'm even gonna verify I'm human. Like that. I am a human. Thank you. Maybe not human enough. Graphic design is my passion. There we go. And it can be your passion too. Thank you so much for your time today, Luna. I appreciate you, and we look forward to seeing you again in the future.
Thank you so much, guys. It was really helpful. I will definitely come back.
Next
with
on
a
the list,
better
we've got.
and
Oh, I'm so sorry. I cut you off.
it's fine. I'm done.
Nate, I'm going to put a 5-second rule on you. You have to count to 5 publicly before you start talking.
Luna, I'm going to follow.
He's
Luna.
literally like
You didn't count to 5. You didn't count to 5, Nate.
the ChatGPT when you start talking to it, and he's like, "Okay, I got this." Okay, I'm done officially. Thank you so much, guys. Bye bye. Move on to the next one.
Appreciate you. Ling Dong is next on the list. Ling Dong, you still out there? Tomei, don't come at me. I'm only human. I am 37 and still have so many things to learn.
All right, Ling, I've got you up. It's Ling, the other one that you had gotten wrong.
Yeah, no, it's weird.
It what? There were 2 Lunas in a row?
Yeah,
Wild.
because my English name is Luna.
For Luna's all the way down. Okay, let's chat. I'm gonna turn your volume up just so I can hear you a little bit better. But just keep in mind, I think your mic is a little quiet, but shouldn't be a big deal. If you'll go ahead and introduce yourself, what should we call you, if it is Luna or not, and then what some of your goals are.
The real name is Luna, and I graduate this May, and my major is graphic design. I want to become a UX UI designer, and right now I'm working as a junior designer in the hacker for LA. I'm looking for a junior level or internship opportunity, and I hope I could land a job this year and get a freelance work. Let's build more experience.
Okay, so if I was to recap, you are currently working as probably a graphic designer at a junior level, and you're hoping to transition to UI UX designer, which means that your next thing is you're looking for maybe a junior or entry level UX designer position.
Now, I think I'm working as a UI designer in the hacker for LA. I'm not working as a graphic design, but I'm looking for some freelance work.
Say that last part one more time. We're trying to make through the accent, just trying to make sure I'm communicating correctly.
I hope I can find some freelance work.
So you're looking
Freelance
for freelance work.
Yeah, no, I haven't found yet.
I'm so
Yes,
sorry.
hear
Did you
me.
say that you were looking for freelance work? And I thought I heard that you were going back to freelance work with a goal of getting more into UI design. Is that sounding right?
That's word you can understand me. Let me get out for a sec.
She says she's going into UX design. So transitioning from I think a UI or a graphic designer, and she's moving into a UX position. The interesting thing, I think, moving into a freelance sort of role inside of the UX space,
Okay.
which is maybe slightly less common. We have more people going into corporate roles rather than coming out of them.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's fascinating. It looks like we lost her. Was she swapping her mic or something like that?
I'm not sure.
Luna, where'd you go?
I'll invite her back to stage.
Luna. Oh, there they are.
I lost my mic. You hear me now?
Yes. I hear you loud and clear.
That's good.
Okay. All right. Now, just to double extra verify, you are looking for freelance UX design roles.
Yeah. I'm looking for like a freelance work related to the graphic design or UX UI design job, but I'm still looking for the junior level job.
Okay.
In the hacker for LA, I think I'm working as a UX designer since I'm working like in the UX research and working with like UI related job.
I'm hearing that you have previously done UX. You're currently doing UX research at a junior level.
Yeah, but it's a volunteer job.
Volunteer job. Hey, volunteer jobs, while a real bummer that they don't pay, are phenomenal places to build that experience, build those case studies, and get real world experience. Kind of a faux pas in our industry to take a lot of volunteer positions. I don't have qualms against them. I think whatever you need to do is great to build your career. There are asterisks with that statement, I should say. Don't take a voluntary position for an enterprise organization unless it's an internship.
I can consider that I'm an internship, to be honest, because I could not find one.
Understood, yeah. What's your goal with this session? What particular problem are you trying to solve?
I hope I can look in with my volunteer case study and I remember we've done this I think a 3 week before.
I think I'm hearing you say the goal is to take a look at your volunteer project. Is that sounding right?
Yeah, it's the first project.
Got it. We can do a little case study review on Food Oasis. Okay.
Yeah. You're looking.
Tim, go ahead and share your screen again.
My screen isn't sharing?
Not currently, and we lost Luna again. Luna, come back. Where do you keep going?
How long has my screen not been shared?
Just since we've been talking with Luna.
Okay. That's crazy. Okay, there we go.
And you'll have to maybe I can invite Luna back. Are they gone?
Invite both Lunas on stage.
All right,
I got her.
Yeah,
all the Lunas.
Yeah,
Everyone who's named Luna. Okay, let's I've asked someone who I trust in animation to give us a quick review of this text animation in the chat, and I think they'll do a good job, and we may have some comments on that. Getting into this project, first of all, when we're talking about a landing page or a portfolio in general, the goal of it is twofold. One, it needs to introduce who you are to someone. Two, it needs to introduce why you are valuable to them. So from a positioning standpoint, we have you. Hi, I am Luna. Strong. We know who you are. You are Luna. That's very clear to us. What we are missing is maybe some of the specific language about your role. I don't think you need to say aspiring. I think you could just say you're a New York-based UX UI designer. because the role that we need to put on our portfolio is the role that you're looking for, not necessarily where you are currently, but where you're aiming. So if you want to be a UX designer, you should just say you are a New York-based UX designer. And I think that's great. When we get down here to your projects, something that will also be important is talking about how do I know which project to look at? If I'm a reviewer or if I'm someone who's going through your portfolio, I have to make a decision, which is I only have time to look at one of your projects, but you have three. So what are the differences between your projects and which one is going to be the best use of my time? This is where our descriptive titles really, really help out, where we can say, Food Oasis, Frog Sleep, or Paw Connected. Those are great brand names. By the way, those are great brand names. Like Power Party, Frog Sleep, awesome. So much personality right there in a brand name. However, it does not mean anything to me in terms of value or measuring your personal value. So a title that might be a little bit stronger would be talking about what exactly you accomplished, who you were doing it for, and then some of the steps that you took. And I call this, let me just go ahead and put this real quick in here. Talk about like for titles, do what you accomplished, who it was for, and then the last part was what you did. So this would be like your process, your users slash. Well, this is more I guess not your users, but actually your like the industry slash business that you did it for, and then the last one being accomplished would be your outcomes. Let's just go ahead and drag this out. So looking for something like this in your title. And so if you were to rephrase some of these, I think it becomes a little bit easier for us to like quickly go through this and say, yes, it's easier for me to see. I'm looking for someone who can do UX research and who can really drive real results. And so you might say like, this project was creating food opportunities for 500 million people, leading to behavior changes in how they interact with the project and churn via user research. And then I know exactly who you're doing it for. I know your audience. I know the methods and process that you did, or at least one of the big ones from it. And I kind of have a general idea of like, is this the right one for me to spend my time on? Which then also helps us to frame this whole thing. If I get in here, I'm on Food Oasis, you have that really descriptive title up here, which just gives me a really nice lens for looking at the entire project as a whole and understanding where I'm going with it, rather than just claiming that improves how hours are shown based on search results, which probably is a good goal that you were solving for, but is a little bit out of context and is not strong enough to really carry it on its own. Nate, where else would you go with this?
I don't exactly know. I've got all kinds of thoughts here, and I think I'm missing the key ingredient that's enabling me to dictate the correct move forward. Luna, help redirect me here. And I'm going back to your goals, and I'm missing the key thing. Are you looking to target, like, are you trying to go freelance with your UX design, or are you targeting getting hired at an organization somewhere?
Boss. I think
Oh,
boss.
that is a tricky, interesting. Okay, so there's a conundrum then. The hurdle is the audience. So let me back up. This portfolios, case studies, your personal website is a marketing tool that should be designed for a very particular audience with a core goal of selling you as a product. The hurdle is the two audiences that we have for freelance folk and getting a job at a corporate environment. Those are two very different audiences. Corporate environments, which Tim and I are well established in talking about, these are hiring managers, recruiters, folks dedicated to business acumen who are looking to get their professional businesses solved for. Now, freelance folk, on the other hand, change. And the quandary is Tim and I don't know exactly who your target audience is for freelance. But these are consumer level folk. These are folk who want to see, like, what services do you offer? What products do you sell? How are you going to help me assist with my business? What's the process look like in hiring you? Like, it's their core differences in the informations that these different personas are looking for. if I were in your shoes, I'd want to build 2 websites, one dedicated to each website, one for your freelance audience and one dedicated to your, I don't know if corporate is the correct target audience for you, but you're like your UX designer for hire audience. How are you feeling about that? You feel like any challenges with that mindset?
Yeah, a little hard right now.
Why is that?
Because I haven't met this kind of situation before, so I still browsing in my head.
Am I hearing that there's additional friction there because you've never done that kind of positioning before and you don't know what the next steps are?
Yes.
Got it. Okay, cool. In regard to next steps for building portfolios dedicated to selling your services as a UX designer for a company, Tim and I have a lot of information there. In regard to selling your services as a freelancer for hire, I have less knowledge and intellect for you there. But the good news is, I think we can seal a lot of these concepts. Like, I think we can Google UX services or web design services in your area, for example, and locate what competition is doing and like get a gist of the things that folks are interested in. Tim, you've got experience. You're in a unique position where you've got experience in both of these categories, whereas I'm more on the corporate side. How are you feeling about the direction here and how one markets those 2 positions?
Yeah, I think in order to understand why they're not congruent or super compatible, we need to first look at a big question, which let's do, please just make large. Nope. Why do people hire designers? If this is our core, if we understand everything around this particular question, a lot of the other stuff begins to make sense. Why do people hire designers? And so typically, if you look at like, we call it in-house or full-time, and we look at freelance, which is contract-based, right? Freelance or short-term, or we'll just call it contract. Typically, when an in-house team is hiring someone, they have a room and budget. They are getting ready to scale or grow. And they have team needs a regular known help. Like describing each of these in detail, right? This might be like in-house team. They just got a big win. They got a new market area. A new product has launched, and they have like 100,000 new customers, which means that now their budget is growing. And they're saying, okay, our budget's growing, our user base is growing. Now we have more room to spend more for designers. So we're gonna hire another designer who's just gonna kind of generally help out the team. So that can be one reason for it. Another reason, though, is that they're getting ready to do that. They can be, hey, this year we're going to build a new product. So we need some people who are going to help us build this very specific product and then maintain that product over time. And so this is the scale or the growth trajectory. And there's another reason in-house teams will hire. And then kind of lastly, there might just be like, yeah, our team, we often find ourselves running out of time or we need help delivering our projects. And this happens a lot. And so we'll go ahead and we're going to hire someone who's going to help take the workload off the team. This often happens during promotions, usually. So like if someone's getting promoted out of a role and they're like short on help, they'll hire another person who kind of takes over some of those responsibilities. So that's our in-house route. And Nate, I don't know, you can push back on some of those, but talking quickly then about freelance, usually it's there's a specific problem or project that needs like short-term help on. So this would be like, we launched an app last year and our onboarding isn't working out. No one on our team is like that good at onboarding. So we're going to hire someone who will help us fix onboarding. And you can see like it's a very scoped problem and like very domain specific. So we'll also say it's very domain specific. You could also say like niched. Niche would be another way of putting it. And then I think, honestly, sometimes they'll do it as like they want to experiment with something. They might say like, well, I have this idea. I don't know if it's a good idea, my team is kind of focused on other things. So let's hire someone to help us explore this kind of one-off idea. And if it works or we like it, we'll go ahead and hire someone to do it full time, or we'll just give it to the rest of the team. And so when you're looking at these like different trajectories for specifically, we'll say UX or product designers, these are very different problems that they're solving, which means that when you are trying to get hired by either one of these, your story needs to adapt to that particular problem set. For example, you might say, like, as a designer, I am a healthcare, right? You might say healthcare designer. And that helps you focus on something for a team that's on a broad scale, that's getting ready to grow stuff, and they need regular help. You have a variety of tools. Versus on a freelance level, you might say, like, I am a onboarding designer, because now you're targeting yourself towards skills and different functions. And this leans into your freelance work where people have very specific problems that they're trying to solve. And so these are like really different lenses, and they're hard to do two at the same time. And you'll notice that if we equate these secretly, both of these are mountains, right? Being the greatest healthcare designer of all time, or being a really awesome, the greatest onboarding designer of all time. You're gonna notice that there is room for these overlap, right? You can say I'm the greatest healthcare onboarding designer, but then that's like a separate mountain over here as well, where you're combining certain things. You probably cannot do both of these at the same time. You're gonna end up in the middle, which is the valley. The valley is the lowest point between two mountains. It's the bottom of both of those mountains. So when you are trying to position yourself, it's recommended to, one, choose where you want to go. Have a good position. This lets you choose your battleground. And then two, figure out what things are you trying to solve for. Are you going to be the designer who goes to teams that helps them grow and scale products that they're working on? Or are you a designer who people hire and you solve very specific problems? Like, for example, specific problem is I help teams build, design systems. That's a very scopable, known problem. It can be a little bit more long-term than most freelance roles, but there is a whole niche of this, of people who just do design systems, which means that if I was hiring someone on my team and I need help, they're the wrong choice. But if I'm hiring someone, I'm trying to solve a very specific design system problem, they're now the right choice. And those are just two ways of communicating value. That is a lot of talking for me. Nate has actually left the chat. I cannot believe Nate has actually actively left me while I was chatting. But how does that feel and work out to you? As I've said that.
Mm, uh, I just feel like I don't know which one is kind of like best for me right now.
Sure, it is really hard to identify a specific niche. I'll offer, I think for time, we're going to have to move on quickly. I'll offer one activity that has sometimes helped me choose my positioning. And this is in addition to, of course, this cool tool that Nate and I were showcasing here for finding your position. You can just go here. This is a public website. You can go here and use this for free. Just go to designshape.com/positioning. When we're talking about trying to find your position, there's an activity that I call love. Let's see if we draw this right. Love, value, or draw a thumbs up, or like skill, love, help, value. And the general idea between love, help, the general idea here is just to help you identify what things you want to do as a person based on what you've already done or what you expect. And so what you do is you list the name of a company or an industry or a job that you've had in the past. So it could be like as a UX designer for, maybe there's a company, maybe you're at Google. You're like, oh, UX designer at Google. And you could say, did I love working at Google? Yes or no? And then you might say, well, was I actually good at this? Did I have the skills? Was I helpful for the team? Did I build value? You might be like, yeah, I did. And then maybe you can say, well, was it value? Do they have enough money to pay me? Did this pay me enough and meet my expectations? And you can be like, no, I wanted them to pay me $5 million instead of $4 million a year. And you can say like, yeah, if I'm looking at this, I can see I do like working for teams that are like Google. So I know that the environment's good. So I want something that's like Google. I want something that does the same problems that Google does, but I need a team that has more money than Google does. And then this can start to direct you towards your niche and what kind of problems you'd like to solve. And it also works when you're like, I liked working with, I was a UX designer with a guy named Jack. You say like, yeah, there's this guy named Jack who's my manager. I was working on a team with him and I didn't like him. And I can say like, all right, I know that any team I work on can't have a guy like Jack on it. That's just not going to work for me. And you can say, was I good at my job? Yeah, I was really good at that one. I did a lot of helpful work. I did a lot of value. But they also couldn't afford me. And you're like, well, this is the worst because I didn't like working with Jack and they didn't pay me enough either. And so, if I like, yeah, companies like this one, never again. And this just kind of helps you identify maybe where you're headed or what you're looking for. Because no one can choose that for you at the end of the day, and certainly not us, just two guys on a call with you.
Okay.
Luna, appreciate chatting with you today. I feel like we talked a lot of philosophy. Do you feel like you've got some sort of actionable that you can take home and potentially make some momentum?
Yeah, I'll try with thinking with the how to choose the different like a job position related. Is my case study okay?
The case study is a great draft. You've got a lot of stuff going really well. There's some opportunity for improvement there that we don't have time to chat about today. But
Okay.
if your goal is to get review back on this case study, happy to talk on a future Friday. Also, Tim and I both have one-on-one sessions, and you're welcome to go to our profiles and then reach out to us individually if you're looking for immediate feedback. We're happy to connect.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Luna, really appreciate chatting with you.
Bye.
Next on the list, Tim, we've got Omar. Omar, if you're out there, put your hand up.
He's not here anymore.
Got it. You're already on it. After Omar, we've got Fictional Tomb.
You're up, man. Or woman. I guess it's a little weird. More generic guy. Fictional tomb.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Awesome.
Hello.
Hi, my name is Devin. I'm currently driving, but I'm going to be parking here in like 4 minutes, so I won't be on the road too long. Hope that's okay.
That's okay. Devin, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what you do?
Yeah, so I'm kind of a jack of all trades. As you can see, I'm a digital experience specialist. I kind of market myself as a content specialist who focuses on UX problems and problem solving. So a lot of my experience is going to be in, formatted around those types of positions. My most recent experience has been going from product research and development through manufacturing, and then transitioning to a UX UI role that was also a little bit of marketing. So I have dabbled in it a lot and a little bit of everything. I started out as freelance. I've transitioned into the UX UI from freelance web development and graphic design, which was a really interesting niche to settle in on, and have kind of been pushing in for more of a UX content specialist role, which in the area that I live in kind of falls into the marketing category, where I'm able to take, a little bit of that UX knowledge and apply it to those marketing positions. But I have been interviewing and trying to get into more UX content specialist and web development, like on the front end roles. So kind of just looking for some feedback on the way I've positioned myself, and maybe from your more corporate focused experience, where I can make adjustments in my presentation or my portfolio.
I feel like Tim and I are just staring at each other, waiting for the other one to talk. Dev, super appreciate all the information you provided there. Let me repeat something back to you just to make sure I'm understanding. It sounds like your goal is to get hired at a more enterprise corporate environment, and you're targeting UX content specialist or web specialist. Is that sounding correct?
Yeah. Yeah, so I've built a lot of my experience around freelance. I'm self-taught, self-learned for the most part, currently studying, but that's exactly correct. I'm looking for the enterprise roles and trying to position myself to be more desirable to those positions.
Got it. Got it. Cool. Hey, how do you feel about the targets there? The titles UX content specialist, web specialist, both of which being like niches within the UX industry. Are you attached to those titles, or are you thinking, or are you like open to more generalistic titles like product designer or UX designer?
So I kind of started out in the design, the UX design, like desiring those types of positions, which led into the product design title that I actually had on there for a while. But I just wasn't getting any bites on my resume that I was submitting or any of the job titles I was looking, or like the jobs I was applying for. So it's definitely something I desired. I wanted to be called a product designer. And I kind of got to play with that title in my role at Messenger, which is the EdAV case study on my portfolio. But I've recently kind of just been transitioning to positioning myself as a content specialist, which kind of like, from what I've read, it kind of encompasses those positions as well. But I'm open to your suggestions there.
Well, what's coming to mind for me, and Tim, please challenge me on this. The titles UX content specialist and web specialist are typically not titles found within IT departments, which is usually where product teams live within corporate environments. Like UX design, product design, those are typically within IT departments in the corporate space. UX content specialist, web specialist, those are titles one typically finds in marketing departments. And there's an interesting nuance there of where you feel more comfortable. Like, is that okay with you, that you probably wouldn't be working directly with product teams, you'd be working in marketing?
Yeah, that has actually been most of my experience so far, has been in the marketing side of this career path that I've been choosing. So it definitely is okay with me, either or. And I know that it's like two opposite sides of the path there. So I would say yes to your question.
Okay.
The marketing side would be fine.
Dope. Well, so now we've got the other conundrum of my ignorance kicks in, and I just don't know those two roles as well as probably you do, really. In regard to corporate environment, man, what kind of theory can I provide here? Like, I typically talk about centralized versus decentralized environments, but I don't think that's going to apply for you in a marketing position within the organization. Tim, where's your brain going? Because I'm currently in a conundrum where I don't know how to best move forward, knowing that his target audience isn't within my wheelhouse.
I'm not sure I'm going to be expert enough to appeal to it either. It reminds me strongly, we just did this chart while you were gone, Nate, about why do people hire designers? And there's an in-house reason and there's a freelance reason. And it seems like the direct communication I get from Devin is that he's favored for this like freelance or contract position if he's trying to get, because what you can do is you can work on a specific problem or project with a team, and then eventually they bring you in-house to keep working on that problem. And that seems like the right pathway for Devin based on the people like him, from my current knowledge of Devin, have worked out in the past, where it's been an individual who has maybe a long-time part-time relationship with someone where they do occasional small projects for a team over time, and then eventually they work on one really big one and they get brought in full-time to work inside the team on that project. Not necessarily as like a integrated team member, but they have a full-time role with the team. And so that can be one pathway for you, especially when you're like a digital experience specialist. I do a lot of things, I have a lot of experience. They might be looking for someone who can kind of work on these projects just in the background, cooking on things that they don't want their main team to work on. Now, Devin, I have to say, the people who have seen do that successfully are often working for unhealthy managers who don't manage teams very effectively. But it still can be very lucrative. And obviously there's a demand for it, and someone's gotta do it. So that could be you. And that could be where you're headed with this. If you are trying to get though into a full in-house role, I would point to, maybe you said that you weren't getting a lot of bites on your resume, and people weren't landing on your portfolio. This might be a good moment to just challenge your cycle, your job cycle here, right? When you apply to a job, things go through an what am I doing? I don't need to use text here. We can use squares or rectangles. We use rectangles. That's the smallest rectangle I've ever seen. What? Rectangle. Okay. We could do like you apply at the ATS level, and then after that, it goes to a reviewer. And then there's like a manager. And then after that, it goes to a team lead. And if you are finding that somewhere in this top section is where the problems are, because usually team lead is like your first real interview. First real interview. Although some people count phone interviews differently, and that's okay. I'm not going to argue that. But if you're finding that you're stuck up here in this like first flow of ATS system, the reviewer system, the manager, instead of getting stuck in interviews, then I suspect it's probably a resume issue. It's either a resume issue or a volume issue. Right now, the numbers for applications when applying to jobs traditionally, it's definitely on the side of like 100, sometimes even 200 to 1 in terms of if you apply to 200 jobs that you're qualified for, you get one interview out of that because there's so many applicants right now. We look at the numbers, you have like, let's just say like 1,000 people apply to a job, right? The ATS is only allowed to hand off 100 people. So, you lose like 90% of people right away. Then the reviewer says, well, out of these 100 people, I can only recommend to the manager to look at like 20 of them. And then the manager's like, well, the team lead does not have time to do 20 interviews. So I will choose the top 5 people for the team lead to interview the next 2 weeks. And if you do like the math here of like going from 1,000 to the top 5 of those 1,000s, you're less than the top 1%. You're the top 0.5% of those candidates. Where's the percent button? Aha. I don't have my keyboard's not labeled. I apologize. But this is like you're here at the top 0.5% of candidates. And that's your resume check. This is where you get into a craft check. Remember, this is like they might look at your portfolio as like a vibe check, but not as like real detailed look that the team lead does. So if this is where you're getting stuck, first of all, I think you're probably okay. You're just like most people in that regard. If you do get an interview, you are totally doing a great job. You're doing something right if you're getting interviews at all. Even if you don't go very far in interviews, because interviews are very tough and difficult. But I would separate these issues. Like if you're, before you say this job title didn't work for me, it could be that your volume just isn't high enough yet, or maybe the people that you're applying to are not communicating correctly what they're looking for, which is also a problem. But not a you problem, that's a them problem.
I don't mean to interrupt. I'm just on a time crunch, but I just wanted some insight, and that's some great insight, I will say, to start off, just to kind of guide me in the right direction. Because I know my work is good experience for the industry that I've been looking to get into, just based off of other people I've spoken with that are my mentors who are providing that direction for me. The reason I'm kind of leaning towards the marketing side, to kind of wrap back to what Nate was mentioning before, is just because of where I live. I live in Indiana. It's smaller businesses, smaller agencies. They're not going to be this larger corporate companies that you see out west that you guys might be used to. And they kind of want somebody that's a jack of all trades. So I don't get the opportunity to kind of gear myself as a product specialist, even though that was what I had originally desired. And it's more of somebody that does work in the marketing industry, but still does a little bit of what you would experience in the UX side from what I've experienced in a product role. I will say that I have tailored my resume just a bit differently recently, and I have received quite a few responses and have received interviews. And my most desired resume that I put out there in an interview at a local corporate company out here, I actually am on my 3rd round, doing a web development test right now. So I'm excited to see where that takes me, and I'm hoping that I can kind of lean in that direction. But I guess overall, just when you guys are making the suggestions for other people to find their niche, would you say that my niche would be better focused leaning towards the marketing, or I guess I'm not really sure how to ask the question. I thought about it before and I totally blanking on it now.
I can potentially answer this in an awkward way. If your goal is targeting enterprise environments, how do I describe this? You are currently positioning yourself well, I think, for small, mid-level, and startups. Folks who have a small selection of team members who need one person to be able to do a myriad of horizontal skills. I think you're well positioned for that. If your goal is enterprise environments, I don't know that you're currently positioning yourself for any adequacy toward their desires and needs. Is that that's sort of bypassing your question, but like in regard to finding a niche, I don't know that we can accommodate one just yet. Is that making sense?
It definitely is. I have like 3 minutes left before I have to go into my job I had to pick up, just because my freelance work wasn't supporting me. But just really quick, what would be your suggestion to kind of start looking in that direction, I guess, to position myself for an enterprise level role if the one I'm interviewing for right now doesn't work out for me?
Yeah, I would want to position you for either product designer, UX designer, UI design. Your portfolio looks like it's positioning you closer to that of UI and UX. So you've got a head start there, I think. And then I'd want to figure out some sort of value prop that narrows down your niche enough that reduces the competition. And if you're in like rural Indiana, or rural is maybe not the right word, but if you're in Indiana where competition is lower, then you may not have to niche down far at all, because the goal of niching is removing competition. If you don't have any there, then maybe that's not a huge conundrum. I want to throw one more thing at you. Is that okay?
Yeah.
All right, Tim, I'm adding a picture to the chat. Dev, the thing I'm wanting to chat about is you had mentioned your resume, like you weren't getting a whole lot of bites on your resume. This is a thing I'm experimenting with, and I wanted to chuck it at you in case you wanted to experiment with me. On my resume, I've got links to my LinkedIn, links to my portfolio, all of that sort. Those links on my resume are tracked links. The goal here is to validate, is the ATS filtering out my resume entirely? If so, I should see no clicks on my resume. If I see some clicks on my resume, I know the ATS isn't filtering me out, and the resume is at least hitting some humans. If I don't see any links getting to my portfolio, then I should theoretically know that my resume has bypassed or at least utilized ATS correctly, but isn't selling and converting me effectively enough. That's the objective. I'm still testing this and validating whether that's effective at measuring that, but I'm hopeful I can pass it your way. This is a website called short.io. I'll type it in the chat there. That might be able to help you validate where the resume, like if the resume is successful for you or not, and potentially enable you to better A/B test.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to use that. I appreciate that. That's good direction. Something I can run with. I'll check that out for sure.
Right on.
I appreciate you guys' time.
Dev, appreciate chatting with you. Good luck with everything.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good one.
Before we move on from short.io, for the folks out there wanting to test that, know that it likely comes with another sacrifice, and that is when you apply for a job, it attempts to auto fill out the application through your resume, and now the links to your LinkedIn portfolio sites are tracked links. So it'll now be ingesting trackable links, which aren't specifically like the correct links, right? So if you're applying for jobs, you may have to go back and like change, you should go back and change those trackable links, because that's not the metric you're trying to measure. Tim, did that make sense at all?
Yes. What Nate is describing is that the way short.io works is that you give it a link and it gives you a new link. And this becomes the link that you share publicly with people, even though they don't know this is the actual link. And so if you apply with a resume that's using these analytic links, they won't, it won't give the right links when you're applying to jobs. And so you should have a resume for applying to jobs, and then you should have a resume that has these links that point at the real link. And then that way you get the right analytics.
Even if it did, like if you applied for a job and it even did pull the incorrect short link, you would then be measuring clicks to your short link through through applications, which isn't the thing we're trying to measure, right? So even if it did pull the short links correctly, we would still want to replace them with the real LinkedIn links and real portfolio links. Tim, we have 15 minutes left. Next on the list is Desi, and I think Desi's still out there. I saw him chat previously. Desi, if you're there, raise your hand. Tim's going to find you. Ah,
I am gonna find.
I found him in the chat.
Well, I gotta mark that one's done. Desi, there you are. Boom.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah. Hello guys, what's up? How is it doing?
Doing well, thanks. Appreciate you being here. Describe to us who you are and what's the problem you're trying to solve.
Myself, Dhruv. I am a graphic designer over 3 years of experience working with multiple clients. I create poster designs, banner designs, looking for freelance projects right now and upgrading my skills
Got it.
to make a better portfolio. Yeah.
And describe what's your goal with today's session. Is there a problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah. You can guys review my portfolio. That's
Okay. What's your goal with your portfolio? Are you applying to jobs currently?
Yeah. I'm looking for freelance projects and
Okay. Now I'm going to try inferring. I would only be able to infer this, but just to double check. First of all, can you tell me what should I call you? What's your name?
Dhruv.
Dhruv?
Yeah.
Dhruv?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for being here.
Oh,
And a little bit of background from you. You are just a freelance graphic designer, as you said?
yeah. Earlier I was a video editor, but I changed into graphic designers.
Okay, very fun. Graphic design at a freelance level or like at a corporate or like in-house level?
No, I am a freelance,
Okay. And you want to
but
stay
in the
freelance?
no, but in the future I can go into full time or in-house
Okay.
graphic designer. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then if I could ask, like, how long have you been doing this for?
3 years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So a graphic designer with around 3 years, maybe a little bit more of experience, who's transitioning out of video editing into looking for a in-house graphic design type role. I think we can work with that. Nate, where do you want to start? Or we can just I can pick a spot to start.
I think there's all kinds of cool things to talk about. I think when we pull up Behance links, we have to start the conversation with Behance. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, let's just be brief. We've given this many times. Behance is not a bad place to be. First of all, when you're looking to build your portfolio, especially for the first time, it's not a bad place to be. It gives you some nice constraints to work with, and you start to kind of get the feel for how you want to communicate your story. At the same time, we have to be really careful with Behance. Behance does not want to help you. Behance wants to help itself. It's an Adobe product. And so you'll notice that like the main buttons on this page, this is your portfolio. The main buttons on this page are 1, look at Behance. 2, look at other people on Behance. 3, apply to jobs on Behance, which is a little bit weird if I'm trying to hire people. 3, how to use Behance, and then look, hire other people again. And then there's this huge search bar for finding, again, other people on Behance. Then their main CTA is going to be sign up for Behance or sign in or go to Adobe. Those are the main CTAs that we have here. None of those things, of course, help you out very much. Now, there are some tools that are meant to help you out. For example, I could try to follow you. except I have to actually sign in to follow you. I could try to hire you, except I actually have to sign in to hire you. I could try to save this to a mood board for other job candidates, but I have to sign in to do that. I could share, but then, of course, sharing it, I have to come back and I have to sign up to talk to you. Now, I could try to go this way, hire you, but I have to sign in to do that. Or again, save the candidate to my job board, and I have to sign to do that too. In fact, when I go to your area here, there's a little button here, or in general here, that says like, hey, I should hire you. And I can just turn that off. And as you can see, that's very helpful for you. Not at all. Not at all. That's a terrible experience because this is supposed to be like you telling your story and like your services. And at the same time, Behance is like in the way of all of these tools available to me. So there's effectively no way for me to contact you unless I specifically sign up for Behance thing, which Adobe is the devil, and I will never do that. I will never sign up for that. Now, again, not that it's a bad place to be. It just shouldn't be the only place that you are. If you're going to be on Behance, you need a website that people can go to where they can message you without having to sign in, such as emailing you, or a place where you can just show your work that's not tied up with all this. By the way, did you like this? Go look at this other guy for hire who's just like Dhruv, and then that doesn't help you at all. So that's my quick version of be careful, be wary of Behance, because Behance is not in it for you. They're in it for themselves.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification.
Tim, there's also a spiel about freelance that makes reviewing portfolios like this a little bit of a snag for us. The hurdle here is that Tim and I are awesome at talking about target audiences like corporate environments, hiring managers, recruiters. The hurdle is those are not your target audience. You've got a business that you're trying to sell. You have a different culture. You've got different services that you offer, and we don't know what your target audience is. So in regard to like what we believe are the most effective strategies and tactics for you, we have less insight there. And the fear that I have is that our rhetoric becomes more subjective in nature because of that. And then we really try to not provide subjectivity. We really try to lean toward factual theory to provide feedback. So all that to say, we could certainly like take a look at some high level things, but we probably won't be able to get into specifics of like where your strategies are actually being most effective. Is that okay with you that we like do a real high level view, but we probably won't be able to provide a whole lot of value?
Yes, I guess.
I'll give it my best here. I'll try to go quickly so we can cover a lot of ground for you. Of course, knowing that some of it's a little bit more subjective. Now, when I land on your portfolio, this is apparently your portfolio. I do want to say welcome to my portfolio is very welcoming. However, it doesn't add a lot of value. You probably want to introduce people to yourself a little bit faster. For example, I didn't come here to necessarily look at your portfolio. I came here to learn about you. So you might say, welcome to Dhruv, or Dhruv, a graphic designer, or something like that that introduces the value and why people should care a little bit faster. Because welcome to my portfolio describes a place, it just doesn't describe a value yet. And getting to value fast is going to matter. Second, this is if we're getting down here about me, that's important. I think it's cool to talk about you. However, you should probably talk about about your clients or who works with you instead of talking about yourself. When it comes to humans, we have this thing where when we read about other humans, we like those humans more and we become more like those humans. And we call this empathy, which is shocking to everyone, I know. But empathy works in such a way that if you describe the clients and the partners that you work with, I like those clients. I want to be more like those clients. I start to become a little bit more like them, and also starts to direct people to your audience. And so if you say about my clients, clients such as, restaurant owner Joe or something like that, right? And then you can be like, oh yeah, I own a business that also serves people kind of like a restaurant does, or maybe I actually do have a restaurant. And then I'm like, oh yeah, this is probably the right guy for me. He specializes in the things that I work with that I need. then you start getting into like, thank you for visiting my portfolio. I guess it's very kind, very kind. Nothing wrong with being kind, but maybe just not as focused on the values we might want it to be. You do have skills listed, which is interesting. I don't think there's anything wrong with this. You do have your approach. I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. Your index is interesting because I can't actually click on any of it. So even though you do have an index here, it's not super useful for me in terms of like navigation. That's also going to be a challenge with Behance. Behance is not good for navigation because it's all an image, whether one image or a bunch of images altogether. Branding is cool though. Where's my mind? You do have some brands here. I'm not the person. This is where it becomes very subjective, right? I'm not currently looking for brand. I'm not sure what it's like to be someone, a company who's looking for a brand designer. And so I can't like quite put together all of this, but there is maybe a lack of like a unified process here. Like you're showing a lot of output without talking about how you come to that output or the steps you're taking that ensure quality. Although the visuals are kind of cool. I guess it's kind of like a cool visual, you know, like opening a book that's your brand. That's kind of a cool. I don't know, Nate, how would you feel about that if someone gave you a printed book of your brand identity? That's a cool thing, right?
It's a great target. Yeah, I want to learn more about the problems that the client was trying to solve and how that book assisted with solving that problem. But I like the idea of it.
Yeah. Going through here, logo designs, where ideas become visual identity. This kind of reads a little bit like it's AI written. I don't know if it is, but I just watch out for some of this stuff. You don't want people to feel like the work they're looking at is AI generated at all. AI assisted is fine, but just making sure that the words matter a lot. We talked about this previously as well, that like bad interface will tank your application and portfolio, but really strong writing helps with medium UI. And so making sure that your writing is strong enough to not feel weird or feel wrong to people, but you have good visuals, so that's great. And then I guess if people are looking for this, you know, if this is your number one goal, I would organize your index by the things you like to work on the most and are most likely. So if people are most likely to hire you for branding, you know, branding is the first one, logo being the second one. But it's also possible people mostly want you for websites or for even something different. And then you could reorganize those accordingly. And there's so much content here. I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I do have a strong suspicion that it'd be better for you to separate this giant long image into multiple slides and then also separate it into multiple posts. And so that way people get the chance to look at your branding work, your logo work, your website work under a separate, not one giant scrollable place.
Okay. Great.
And I hand it to you, Nate.
I don't know if I have anything to add. I think everything you've described so far is awesome. I would want to talk more about like who your target audience is, what your business strategies are, what constraints you have. But those are all really large conversations that we don't have the capability for on these larger calls. And without that knowledge, I don't know if I can provide any more value that Tim hasn't already mentioned. How are you feeling? Do you feel like you've got some sort of takeaways that you can take and better implement for your portfolio?
I'm looking to upgrading my portfolio, but
Are you saying you're looking to upgrade your portfolio?
yeah, so
In what way? Like technically, content wise?
with the content wise,
Yeah, so
in the
I th-
branding stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think everything Tim is describing there is awesome for upgrading some of the content. If your goal is to upgrade more of like the technical, is to move away from Behance to more toward a professional website, then there's conversations there as well. But if your goal is upgrading content, I love what Tim has described.
yeah,
Now, Tim said a lot of things. I'm going to paste in a link to our YouTube channel. That's the link to the video that we are recording right now. So you're welcome to go back and listen to Tim's rhetoric again. beyond that, I really appreciate you hanging out with us and being willing to hop on the stage with us. Would love to have you back in the future, especially if you end up building a portfolio of some kind. Would love to critique that. A personal
Thank you.
website, I should say.
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
Next time.
great call from Amy. There's a couple of spelling mistakes across this image deck. So as you go through, just do a quick pass and make sure things are spelled correctly, including portfolio. Which, yeah, I guess portfolio right here is maybe not spelled correctly. Which
No, spelled it is correctly, but the font is like stylish font, so it's not visible like this.
I actually think that this I is swapped with this L. So it'd be OLIO.
Okay.
Unless I'm crazy. I might be crazy, but
Yeah.
actually I do know I'm crazy, but you can also send your link right here, your actual address for it. I think it's also misspelled. Let's see. Portfolio. Yeah, spelled the OLIO versus OILO. So just a cool thing to watch out for. You can see here as well. So okay. That aside, and you can go check out the link here. We did record it. I'm not gonna guarantee that it's fun to watch necessarily, but you can go watch it, especially if you got some feedback in here. Go up and take notes on it. And we truly do hope, though, that what we've been able to contribute today is the betterment for everyone and kind of getting you in a better position. If you have feedback from today, if you had something you liked or didn't like, please let us know. We're doing this mainly for you guys, not just for us. I mean, I'm okay with the sound of my own voice, and I also do like hanging out with Nate, don't get me wrong, but we also do this because we want to help mentor other designers and kind of advance everyone together. So that's our goals. Those are our aims. So, that's it though. So Nate, I've got nothing else on this category. So
Excellent. Are you still open to diving into Q&A, or you have a hard stop?
I do have a hard stop, but I don't have a hard stop yet. So we can do some Q&A today.
Got it. Perfect. Folks, that's going to end for Feedback Friday. We're going to hop into Q&A here in a second. If you weren't able to get your portfolio reviewed today, we do this every Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. All you got to do is add a link to your thing in the chat, which is one of the directions that I'm pointing right now, depending on where you're at. I highly encourage you show up 10 minutes early just to make sure you're one of the first 5 or 6 portfolios or links on the chat, because we usually only get to 5 or 6 for these sessions. Let's hop into Q&A, folks. We're looking for questions in the chat. I should just state it plainly. Yeah, if you have any questions in the chat, Tim and I would feel happy to chat about those things. This is kind of my favorite time.
Yeah, it's so fun to get into like the group Q&A. Now, if we're gonna preface some things that Nate and I talk about, what we tended to like, what we find is very helpful is often going through workflows. For example, now that Nate, are we still recording right now, or is this
still recording?
Okay. So there are certain things that we can showcase, like workflow wise, how we do stuff. We can help with like setting up things. We can talk about AI. We can answer ephemeral questions about like where is design going as an industry, but also like maybe super practical. You can be like, how the heck do you do user research nowadays? Be like, yeah, let's talk about some of that stuff. Really, anything's up for grabs. So if you've got stuff, questions, concerns, comments, life things you want to know about Nate's mysterious cats, and if Nate is a real person or an AI, you can ask Nate about that.
I'm bummed, Tim, that M-dashes are now robot correlated. I'm a big fan of the M-dash and formal writing, which is a heavy use of M-dashes. The trials.
Nate, I sympathize with the statement that you're saying.
You're an M-dash user. Do you
I
go out of your way
am
to
not an M-dash user.
Oh, okay.
I just use dashes. And when I say use dashes, there's a line on my keyboard that is like a line, and then there's a line on the same key that's a longer line. and I only use the short line.
A hyphen.
A dash.
A hyphen.
A dash.
Chat. Is it a hyphen or a dash? Dash? I don't actually know what the Mac keyboard uses. Natasha, none of that compromise. One of us is the enemy. Okay. The split party. Look at this.
I don't think it's split, Nate. I'm pretty sure they're saying it's dash.
No. I see lots of hyphens. At least 2.
Everyone, I'm tempted to just go through and delete all the ones that disagree with me.
Don't be
Just
that
start cleaning out. Yeah, we can do survey. Survey says, what do we do? Poll.
Alex gets it.
Dash
it's hyphen,
or
then N dash, then M dash. By the way, N dashes have a very specific use that most people on the resumes use incorrectly. I've never mentioned it. I've rarely mentioned it because I don't think it matters. But the only occasion in which one uses an N dash is to distinct between 2 different times. So like 2019 to 2024, that's an N dash. Nobody uses that. Nobody uses N dashes on their resume. Does anybody care? Nobody cares.
You know what, Nate?
What's that?
The poll is to say it is decisive would be conservative.
Now hold the phone. I'm feeling like there's a little bit of bias in the survey.
You know what, Nate? You suggested we take a survey, and I acquiesced to you. So I don't know why you're complaining or making a big deal of this.
God,
I thought you were going to be data driven. I thought you were just going to take it as it was.
I mean,
is that not true? Are you not a man of the numbers?
I am a man of the numbers, but more people are voting for cat than they are dash, and than they are the other dash.
So people prefer cat over other dash. That's great. That's great feedback. But you know what they prefer over cat is dash.
Well, you say that. Cat is climbing real quickly.
Let me remove this reaction. Oh, someone's trying to do hyphen.
Wait, I haven't voted yet. That's 4 votes now for other dash.
Incredible. It's incredible. Okay. We do have an actual question here though, which is, can we talk about AI workflows? Can you talk about your AI workflow, especially when it comes to prototyping, rapid prototyping? I'm supposed to be making a YouTube video about this. I'm supposed to be writing a thing about this for someone who asked me to do this, and I wrote like the very first lines of it, and then I just didn't do anything because it was the 4th of July when I was thinking about this. It's been a while. I need to get back to that. Nate, I have a good answer to this. I do know my workflow very well. I'm curious if you already have your workflow and if you can give it like a bundle.
I can certainly talk about it. The conundrum. So folks unfamiliar with Tim is well in depth in the AI space. I think more than anybody I know. Tim, do you know anybody who's more in depth in AI than you?
I mean, there's people who build AI. Those people are probably more, but in general, from a practical standpoint, I have not. I actually had the privilege of going to Config this year, and I met some pretty big name people working at AI, people who are building AI companies, like people building Subframe, for example, OnLook, and other just like really big, cool AI stuff, especially for designers. And chatting with them was really cool. A little bit weird for me because they wrote down a lot of the things that I said, which made me a little uncomfortable. Having notes taken on what I do. Well, but I do not practically know people who do more stuff there.
I see. I would love to hear your response and how you utilize AI. I can then give my response afterward, which I think is going to differ substantially because I primarily work in agile environments, in which case the concept of prototyping is somewhat shifted.
Okay. I will, do we want a visual? I can't show my current work on a recorded call. So that does limit what I can share here, but I can talk about it and describe it pretty well. So for me, design is all about solving problems with a certain lens. And for product designers, that means we're solving product-oriented problems. So, and when you get that ephemeral, the method in which you solve it matters a little bit less, as long as the theme and the lens of what you're accomplishing is true. So we approach product design with a psychological and behavior analysis for users, how people interact with products in general, and then solving problems that drive towards better behavior changes that lead to outcomes at a business level. And that's like product design, like a little nutshell. So I treat then the things that I do to accomplish that goal of driving behavior change for positive business outcomes as materials or surfaces. I'm borrowing the word material from config and Figma. Figma has talked about this as well. They say like, you know, it's a material. Whatever you use to design is a thing, like this, like the substance where you're designing on top. So if you're drawing on paper, then the paper itself is the material you're sketching. If you're drawing inside of Figma, Figma is the surface or the material. And for me, I've discovered that AI allows me to use code and the actual product itself as the material. So if you can imagine, instead of going into Figma and tracing the product and then making edits to the trace, I can go to the product and I can say, I'm just going to use the product itself. I will modify the product however I want to solve this problem until I get to where I want to go, and I'll just take that. Now, to do this effectively, there are safeguards you're going to need. There are definitely some caveats and limitations that you'll run into. But in general, once you get into understanding some of the basics and fundamentals of how GitHub works, how terminals work, how AI likes to work, and a couple of other phrases like work trees and branches, it becomes quite simple. Simple, maybe a little, I might be going too fast. Nate, just stop me if I get like too technical, or someone in the chat, just say stop if it like gets way overhead or I forgot to explain something. Where I start right now is I work with a team that has code on a live product. This is a live product. They put that product on GitHub. GitHub is like Google Drive, but it's for your code. And so it lets multiple people look at code from one source at the same time, and the code is always the right code because it updates as people make changes to it. The only thing about GitHub is that it does not auto-save, and so we call saving code into GitHub push. You call it a push. This is when you push stuff there, and then sometimes people will say you push it to GitHub, and then you have to approve that change. And we call that change a pull request. So if you are looking at this, if you're trying to, you know, solidify what these phrases mean, you may have heard developers talk about, you push a change to GitHub, just like you would push a change to a document, and someone reviews that and approves it, which is called a pull request. You can also, though, you can download that code to your machine locally. And we call this a checkout. So basically, you can download a copy of the code online onto your computer, and then you can run that code on your computer in its own personal environment, just like running the real product, except it's all in your machine instead of on the cloud. And that's called a local server. What this allows you to do, for example, is say I invented, since we're talking about Google Drive, let's just talk about Zillow. Zillow is a housing product. It helps you find houses if you're looking for a new house. If I was working on the Zillow team, I would go to GitHub and I would click download Zillow, and I would download Zillow code onto my computer. And then I would go to AI in my terminal and say, hello, today we're working on Zillow. Let's go ahead and turn Zillow on. And we'll run Zillow in a local server together. And then it's on my machine. I can tinker with it. I can play with it. All the code, if I edit the code live, it changes everything on my computer live. And once the changes are the way I like it, I can then say, all right, let's go ahead and push this. Let's push this to the GitHub for Zillow. And then that change becomes incorporated. Now that's the general arc, right? That's the general thing. Now there's steps along the way, right? You have to set up terminal. You have to know how to work with Claude. You need the right skills. You have to know how to direct and focus it. But as a general arc, that's basically what I do now is I download the product. I work on the product. And when I get the product where I want it to be, because it solves a certain problem or it aligns with where I'm going, whether I've designed something inside of Figma ahead of time, or if I'm just saying, I already know what I want this to look like, let me describe it in words. And then we see the surface and material of code adopt that design in live time. And then I send it back. And that's my workflow for prototyping rapidly right now. And also design in general. You can do variations of it. The cool thing is that code also supports like work trees, which means you can run multiple local instances at the same time. For my current product, I work for a company called Flightcast, which is the greatest software distribution platform like in the world. Super ultra powerful. Honestly, it's crazy. I'm so proud to get to work on this software with some of the biggest named podcasters out there. But often I have like 8 different versions of the app running on my computer at the same time because I'm changing different parts of the app in all 8 different instances of it. And then I get to see what those changes are. And kind of, I can be working on multiple things at the same time this way. Did I answer the question?
I think so. Are you able to quickly repeat the applications and what that flow is? Like, for example, I'm hearing you start with Claude Design, you then download via GitHub, you then modify with Claude Code. Like, describe what that flow is like.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not a fan of Claude Code. Claude Design. I use Claude Code inside of a terminal. So, for example, if I'm describing like my everyday work, I might open terminal and I might say, "Hey Claude, there is a linear ticket that I'm working on." Or if I don't have a linear ticket, I'll say, "I need to make a linear ticket describing this problem." Right? Assuming you already know what you're trying to solve, though. This assumes you already know what problem you're trying to solve. If you're trying to figure out what problems to solve, that's a different thing. But if you already know what you're trying to solve, you say, "Hey, we're going to work on this problem together," whether it's a linear ticket or something else. And then you say, "Let's go ahead and start this work by opening a work tree of a new copy of the product." It downloads, it starts, it boots up, and then you get to start going through, here's the changes we need to make. Here's the problem surface we're going to work with. I need to test this interaction. Help me test what this user experienced, because now you can fake your own database. And you let AI kind of help bridge the gap by describing what you need it to do. And because the code is locally in your machine, you have the power to really manipulate and kind of do that. And a really, really powerful applications. For example, this happened to me, I was watching a user recording, and a user was like, they got to a page and then they couldn't get out of the page. And I was like, I don't understand what's happening in this recording. I could email the user, but I'm also curious, like, if I was in this app, what would I do? And so I recreated that exact scene in local code using a database trick so I could see what the user was doing and what the problem was. And that let me find a bug that I was able to fix on the UX design side. So like, there's cool stuff there. So start in terminal, download from GitHub. Claude knows how to do that. Run it locally. Claude also knows how to do that. Describe the changes that you need to make in the code. Claude will help you with the coding part of it. And then review it together. Make sure you simplify that, and then send that to a remote, and then pull request. Now I often do draft pull requests. That way I can attach those pull requests to a linear ticket that I'm sending to an engineer. That way they don't have to use my code if they don't want to, but they do have it as reference if they want to copy parts of it.
Tim, I'm listening to your workflow, and it's more or less identical to my workflow, which is fascinating given that we have 2 fairly different entities with 2 fairly different like regulatory constrictions. And I think my takeaway is that the world of AI like hasn't branched out dramatically enough to force differences between those 2 industries yet. There are some slight variations here. So for example, our workflow is typically, and this is, I'm going to skip past a lot of the manual prioritization of effort. Like, for example, we could talk about the AI consumption of like taking Jira tickets and importing those through AI automatically. There's a conversation there for sure. But if we ignore all of that, we use Claude Code, download a particular request. Now, I will say that we're using GitLab instead of GitHub, but for all intents and purposes, it's the same thing.
I've heard it's better.
I've heard, so this is where my ignorance kicks in because I can't argue the philosophy of these 2 different companies. For the folks in the chat, these are both just repository storage services. there are distinctive like ideologies, differences between them. Tim, do you have any insight there?
I've heard that they're both based on the same. They're both based on the same thing. Yeah, like Matthew says, it's both based around the same like general product and philosophy. So it's not a philosophy difference. It's more about like a user experience difference and which one's more accessible for people and easier to learn. And GitHub can be quite complicated and hard to use. Now, I think there's even a third one out there that people prefer the most, but GitHub is so like prolific that it's hard to like get away from products that use it. Now, there are some who don't use it openly, and those are typically bigger name people because they just can choose to not use it. But yeah, it sounds like Matthew has better opinions than I do.
Matthew knows,
but I've heard that it's easier to use. It's easier to use, not necessarily different fundamentally.
Yeah, and I appreciate Matthew's additional there that when it's being used on prem. You should note that, chat, that I work in the healthcare space. A lot of proprietary data is not the right. A lot of HIPAA compliancy, a lot of sensitive private information. So we don't like the idea of storing data on the cloud. We want to store that locally, or as Matthew is describing, on-prem. On-premises is what that stands for. So the workflow for me is essentially the same. Utilize Claude Code, do pull requests to pull that from GitLab, make modifications there, and then launch those particular drafts and prototypes to the audience for testing. Now, what I do want to touch on is I work in the Agile space. And for the folks unfamiliar with Agile, there's a heavy emphasis. Man, I'm trying to think of like how far back in this conversation do we want to go? Let me touch on something for just a second. If one is using a waterfall process of design, we would typically have 3 phases. We'd have the design phase, the build phase, the discovery phase, the design phase, the build phase. In general, that's what waterfall typically looks like. In a UX, in an agile environment, we would typically have those 3 same phases, but we'd also add on a testing phase at the end of that. But instead of building the entire product, we would instead focus on just a specific portion of that product. And I can showcase why this is relevant. So I work in the healthcare space. The American healthcare space is really complicated. So complicated that the amount of knowledge that one needs to have in this space is greater than the amount of knowledge one can physically have. So then the problem becomes, well, if you're trying to build a product to tackle some of the problems in this space, but it is not humanly possible to have all that knowledge, a waterfall process cannot physically work. There is no possible way for somebody to make a plan that knows all of the things to build a product that then answers all of the problems, because we can't physically know them all. And that's where Agile comes into play. So instead of trying to understand all the problems, we instead say, we're going to understand what we think is the most important problem. We're just going to focus on that. We're going to build an iteration that solves that. And then we're going to move on to the next most important problem, and we're going to solve that. So when it comes to prototyping, the difference here is meaningful, because in a waterfall process, prototyping is typically, I need to validate all of my discovery and all of the design work that I've done to confirm that we are in fact ready for development, so people can publish something without having tech debt and like building the wrong thing, because building is expensive. In the Agile space, the prototype becomes the live product. We are modifying the live product, not with the goal of testing our discovery, but with the goal of testing and validating that the problem has been solved. As in, like, we've got a lot of hypotheses. We think this is the correct way to solve them. Now we're testing if the problem is solved, regardless of the discoveries that we've made along the way. Tim, challenge me on that. How is all of that sounding so far? Is all of that making sense?
I mean, it makes sense to me, because that's how I use it too. It's important to recognize that AI has limitations. For example, if I were to say, this is something that's very easy to fall into the trap of. You might say, hey, we need to solve this problem, do a design for it. That's the wrong level of autonomy to give AI in this case today's limitations. Because AI is able to draw on patterns for things, and it can like reason to an extent based on like probability. However, there's a level of like information and human touch that you need to be directing it. So I never open a ticket. I never say like, hey, I noticed yesterday that users are having a hard time using the light and dark mode feature. and be like, all right, go ahead and fix the problem. And it's not really the way you approach it. You instead say, like, let's go ahead and recreate the local environment. Let's explore some different prototypes of what light and dark pickers might look like based on the data that I've watched users look at. This is when they use it. This is when they don't use it. This is the kind of people who are asking for support tickets. Maybe it's too hidden. And we say, like, what are some ways we can try to like direct people to using dark mode, light mode, and other features like that. And so you do, it's very much the thing of like, when you set out to design something in Figma, you typically are going with an intention. You have to bring that same level of intention to using AI inside of workflows. It's why I like to call it intention designing, which I'm actively coining the phrase for. It's intention designing, not vibe designing, right? That's really, really essential. It is risky because AI makes it so easy to just accept defaults. But please, just as much as you can, try to avoid that. Otherwise, it's just going to look like generic AI stuff. Be the director, and if you have to like slow yourself down and say like, this is really easy, it's too easy, I need to be harder, and I need to think about this problem more. You can do that. You can do that anytime. You can just say, I could immediately design something visual, but it's not the right step yet. It's not the right time to do that. And then you need to pause and say, why would I do this? What should I do? Is it even worth doing?
We've got another
I do want to
question.
address Matthew's comment here about Codex, Cloud Code, Windsurf, Cursor as all being very similar. And they are, in fact, all very similar. The difference is often the application that you want to experience them inside of. So Codex, for example, has a dedicated IDE that you can, well, it's kind of like an IDE. It has its own dedicated tool that you can use it in. Cloud Code is mostly terminal based, although Cloud Desktop is kind of becoming a thing. Kind of. I don't know anyone other than Nate who's ever used Cloud Code inside the desktop before. Seriously. Windsurf is its own IDE as well, and so is Cursor. And they're all going to have different features to them. I would say, though, Cursor is very much based around developer workflows. And so I'd be careful. Cursor is going to be very complicated to use. Codex is probably going to be simpler to use, but also developer focused and experience based. Cloud Code inside Terminal is a little bit more designer friendly, in my opinion, because I like using Terminal. I'm a Terminal CLI person, very much so. And then Windsurf is very similar to Cursor, but a little bit gentler to use. So if you were looking at this list and you're like, which one of these should I try out first? My opinion is always going to be go Codex or Cloud Code, and I would say Claude before OpenAI. Anthropic over OpenAI just from an ethics standpoint, but it's kind of like Marshall. You have to pick your poison. They're both going to have similar challenges. So I would recommend Cloud Code and Codex purely from a pricing standpoint, and because they give you a full suite of tools. As you become more opinionated over time, and you need different features, or you want to try different stuff out, Windsurf and Cursor and other IDEs and other people who basically have their own models that are based on other AI models introduce some new features or some new like mindset shifts that can benefit your foundation that you've built by using Cloud Code or Codex in Terminal or CLI. But I think it's cheaper. It's cheaper to go Cloud Code and Codex route. And then also just a little bit easier to build some of your fundamental things out there. Matthew's probably going to roast me right now. I'm expecting the full roast, but that's what I'll say in there.
Do it, Matthew. Got a question here. Can you please recommend a service where I can find nonprofits that need help with UX? I've got 3 answers to this question. Tim, I'll start with mine, but feel free to add some additional stuff here if you have insight.
I have none. I don't know where to, I don't have a list or anything. I can't recommend any because I don't know any.
Well, you might actually be able to recommend.
They're out there though. They do exist.
You might be able to recommend my second option, which is hackathons, but we'll talk about that. Option number 1, there's a service out there called TechFleet. Really interesting service. So TechFleet is a nonprofit organization who is solving the problem that you're describing. Drug Willow is your name. They're solving the problem you're describing. So the idea is TechFleet says, well, there are nonprofits out there that need tech support and websites and products. On the other hand, there are product designers out there that need to build case studies and real world effort. We're going to organize those 2 parties, put them together, and then create some cool stuff. That organization is called TechFleet. I can Google them and add a link in the chat. Now, what's fascinating about TechFleet is that all of their stuff is publicly organized. So even if you if you just want to dabble or you just want to see what they're up to, you can sign up for their stuff, hop into their Discord server and watch them and join their meetings as a fly on the wall as they organize these things. So it's a really weird, interesting method of getting exposure into the business world of how teams are solving these problems. Really interesting service. I will say that because this is a nonprofit organization providing real world effort, their sign up process has friction by design. They're specifically looking for people who are serious about it, who aren't going to hang out for 2 hours and then never talk to them again and not work with clients, right? So as you sign up, it'll be a little bit tricky to sign up. It'll take a little bit of effort, but once you get in there, very cool to watch them do their stuff. That's option 1. Option 2, hackathons. And I don't know if I have any specific examples of hackathons. I've been in a couple myself years ago.
You won some, right?
I won one of them. I won one hackathon. That was building it was for a hospital client of all things. I didn't realize I was in healthcare back then, but we built a mobile website for a hospital at the time. But the idea is hackathons are just really easy, low barrier of entry ways of getting products team experience working on usually real world things. Not the case with all hackathons, but usually it's for a societal benefit of some kind. And then the third direction here, which is kind of a wild card, and this is something I don't have personal experience with. This is just anecdotal testimonials that I've got evidence for. Cold outreach to nonprofits are usually really amicable to that of volunteer effort. So if you wanted to cold reach out to a local nonprofit that needs a website or tech help of some kind, they're usually very willing to sit down with you and try to make that effort happen. They're in need. These folks are in need. Tim, any additional thoughts on potential directions for volunteer nonprofit work?
Don't cold DM people that you plan to see in person often. I once earlier in my career, I was like, there's a restaurant I love to go to. Their restaurant is basically a template from GoDaddy. And I was like, come on, we could do like 10 minutes and make it better than it is. And I sent them an email and it ruined my relationship with them for forever. They're just so standoff about it. Now I do think that's their fault, not my fault. But at the same time, just kind of be aware. Just kind of be aware. People can be pretty weird about it. And they're so used to being sold to that they can take free work as a sign of badness. Secondly, hackathons. I've had terrible hackathon experiences.
Oh, no.
Mine have been really bad, but there are good ones out there. So don't give up. If you do experience bad ones, you're like, I'm never doing a hackathon again. That's totally fine. And then Nate, I was actually wondering if we should try to do a partnership with TechFleet. If we should try to set something up.
Super interested in exploring it. Yeah, we should chat more about that.
We should chat more about that. See what we can do. That's a cool idea.
What happened with your hackathons?
Oh, I actually saw one of those members in person too. So this hackathon happened years ago, and while I was at Config, I went to a social event, and I was hanging out at the social event, and I was sitting down, and someone came up to me and said, "Tim," and I said, "Hello, that's me. That's my name." And they're like, "We worked together on this," and they said the name of the hackathon, and I was like, trauma reactivated, relive the experience. This hackathon was themed around building a mobile app. They often were back then because mobile apps were all the rage, and still are, honestly. Mobile apps are kind of cool, but they're a little bit easier to do now than they used to be. They used to be a sign of elevation and maturity, whereas now they're not quite there. We've come back to desktops quite a bit. There was a type A personality on the team who had a very strong fascination with documentaries, particularly documentaries about horrific past events. And so the premise that they pitched for our team and kind of decided for us and then sent in our application on behalf of the team was to build a mobile app that let users re-experience horrible, terrible historical events as if they were right there. and kind of like elevating a museum experience, but like making it so you could feel like you were right there in the whole thing. And just on that premise alone, just sit in that premise. Just think about like how popular that would be, and then if I'd ever want to like do some of that, especially where some historical events are, possibly quite like no, but like not even possible, but like quite terrible. Like quite a lot of them are based around hate speech or violence in other ways, and well, that's what we worked on, and it went terribly. Um, Half of us, I think, I didn't give up. I'll admit, I didn't give up. I just decided to separate myself from all strategy because I was like, morally, I don't want to do this. Interestingly, I don't want to do this. I have nothing to contribute in terms there, and so I will just make sure all of our variables and design system is set up to work effectively. And that's where I did the work, but I did not work on any of the experience elements because it was not something I could resonate with. I don't enjoy documentaries about people getting murdered in mass or other terrible, tragic events happening.
That's wild.
Yeah.
This does not count as a documentary, but the show Chernobyl goes well in my category of this was exceptionally well made, and I never want to watch it again. Nuts in the Butter is asking any advice on how to quantify outcomes to showcase on case studies, particularly when concepts / updates do not get implemented or take a very long time to be implemented. Measuring impact. Tim, we got to figure out some sort of way to scale our answer to this question because it's a doozy.
We do. It's also changing. My answer to the 6 months ago is different from my answer today. So.
Oh, that's interesting. Have you matured as a person?
Probably. But also, I think just the market's changed a little bit too.
That makes more sense.
Let me preface by saying it is very understandable that designers have like it not understandable, but like it's very commonplace and therefore forgivable, I guess you could say, that designers are often divorced from the outcomes that would measure the work of what they're doing. Because the only people who know to go to those places are the designers themselves. And if a designer is not ever taught how to, quantify and look up analytics and start building trackers and do the work of like requesting that data and building pipelines on their own, it just doesn't happen. Like it's just impossible. Like a lot of these questions that designers might ask are like, oh yeah, I worked on this thing and it did get implemented or it didn't get implemented. And no one knows how to track that. When you say that question, like whose responsibility was it to track the data though? Whose responsibility is it to know, will this be impactful or not be impactful? And the answer is it's the designer. That's the designer's mental philosophy. So you should always go into designs with an idea of this will move the needle for this reason and to this like predicted extent. And that is often like the first gap. That's the easiest gap for us to solve with portfolios and case studies. Is that if you ever made a decision, you should already know some level of quantification for what you expect to happen with that. If you're going to change a sign up page, what do you expect to happen? Is it going to go up or down? And you should kind of have like an idea, even if you don't ever get to measure it. And then once you do set it up, whose job is it to measure that change? It's the designer's job to do that. Designers have to be in charge of this. We have to take responsibility for it. So I think as AI has also come into the scene, the difficulty of building systems that help us measure stuff like this has also gone down quite a bit. And so I think it is less forgiving now than it used to be for designers to not have any idea what the impact of their designs are. Because a lot of times we have the ability to track that directly and to be much more involved with it than before. But everyone's experience is going to be a little bit different. Every company's a little bit different too. It's just, that's the way it's shifting. That's my answer. That's my answer, Nate.
I like that answer. I don't know. It's very philosophical, right? I don't know what the takeaway is for Nuts in the Butter. But I can add on to this. There's a yes and here. So Nuts in the Butter, I'm trying to come up. So the hurdle is.
I do love that you keep saying the full name.
I'm trying to avoid it because we're making it's such a silly, goofy name. And one of the benefits of these Q&A sessions is that we get to make YouTube shorts and like reels out of these sessions. And I can't start a YouTube short with Nuts in the Butter, right? That's not going to help the algorithm, the gods that be. So when it comes to measuring impact, Tim and I have a spiel about.
And Nate, who asked this question?
Oh, that was nuts in the butter. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I appreciate the reminder there. I mean, Willow's right. It's better than drug Willow.
Drug Willow and Nuts in the Butter.
Oh,
I have a
sorry.
question.
Willow was talking about the email that you made, not their own name. So I just insulted them on top of making fun of their email, which is good. In regard to measuring impact on one's portfolio, Tim and I mentioned earlier, we've got this sliding scale of like vanity on the left and then financial value on the right. Tim's probably got the thing located somewhere. We can certainly talk about that scale. And if you're looking for a quick takeaway, showcasing that scale is really easy to like, that's a really easy thing to understand and then get a general idea of what we're trying to talk about. Yeah, this one. Oh, you're going to redraw it. You don't like the first one? Tim's in the zone. Look at that, locked in. So the idea of this scale here is that we've got vanity on the left, and then like I would call it value on the right. Tim earlier called it perceived value, which is technically more accurate. I just think people get confused by perceived. And value on the right. And the idea is there are a bunch of different kinds of metrics we can capture. And then if we take all those different kinds of metrics that we can capture, we could throw them all on this graph. And ideally, we would focus on the metrics that are closer to the right-hand side of this graph, closer toward value, of course. So when it comes to like the very right side, the highest value, we'd want to associate the metrics with like business and financial value. What does it cost the company? How much money have I saved? Have I increased conversions? Am I building lead generation? How much does the average customer spend now? Like things like that, right? Directly correlated to money. Those are great. If we don't have that, we then move left of the graph. And then I would typically argue left of the graph here would be behavior change. What are the behaviors that have changed thanks to your service within this particular product? So like I work at healthcare space. One of the behavior changes I've measured is analysts no longer have to utilize Excel to validate claims. Like that is a thing that has shifted in our behavior. We can now outdate the need for Excel. A behavior has changed. And that is helpful. That's also a good method here of measuring impact. And then left of that, closer toward vanity and metrics, like Tim's got work and effort here. We could put like testimonials somewhere over there as well, like anecdotal evidence, right? Like it's some evidence, but it's really weak evidence. So ideally, we take this graph and we work as close to value as possible. Tim, I want to take this conversation a slightly different direction here. So I'm going to add, Tim, open up this link. It's just my own portfolio again, and I want to talk about something slightly different here. And I'd like you to scroll down to the section that's entitled the conversation that unblocks everything. It's not terribly far from the top. That one right there. So there's a different like direction I want to take this. And the idea is if one's goal is to measure impact, then that also theoretically means that the designer has the ability to understand like what's the business problem you're trying to solve in the first place. You can't measure the result if you don't know what the problem is you're trying to solve. And that's where conversations like this come into play that I think designers are really well suited to accommodate. And this is a facilitation process that I will do with the majority of the products that I work on. So I will host a conversation with a myriad of stakeholders, depends on what kind of stakeholders, but the more you can get, the better is the quick answer. And I want all these stakeholders to agree on a couple of things. One is the problem, and Tim, if you click on the problem, you can blow that up. In this case, the problem is recovering claims is slow, error prone, or requires a lot of manual intervention. So now we theoretically as a team have agreed on what the problem is we're trying to solve. And there's a conversation of like how we defined that problem and how we got to this place. But for the TLDR is that's the problem we're trying to solve. Now, Tim, I'd like you to expand the business goals section. And this is where we take that problem that we're trying to solve and we break it down in what are the individual portions of that problem that we're trying to solve for. In this case, like the first one, eliminate manual procedure in spreadsheets. That's if we tackle that, that chips away at solving the problem. The next one is reduce time claims take to traverse the payment integrity value stream. The next one is reduce the onboarding time for new analysts. And the argument here is if we can narrow down all the individual business goals, that if we were to achieve all of these, we will have no choice but to solve the problem. We now have a method of validating success. Note that each of these categories is measurable in some fashion. Eliminate manual procedure in spreadsheets. How do we measure that? We see how many spreadsheets they currently utilize today, how much time they're spending in the spreadsheets. We factor that in, and then we can calculate the difference at the end. Reduce time claims takes to traverse the payment integrity value stream. We can measure how much time it takes for a claim to adjudicate through this particular flow, and we can do the before and after time change here. So like if you're struggling to figure out what metrics or like how to measure impact, I'm going to speculate it's because you probably haven't figured out the individual business objectives that you're trying to target in your solution. And in order to get those business objectives, you have to identify what that core problem is, thus completing the circle of the product development lifecycle. Tim, how are you feeling about that? Am I explaining that well? Is that coming across okay?
Yeah, I'd also say it leans into value a lot over here. We're just basically restating the same thing here, right? That if you want to say your value is in the work that you've done, unfortunately, AI can do a lot of work. AI can do a lot of work. And so this, like, if you're thinking about what is design overall, if design is just the work and effort that you're making, this becomes replaceable output. So this is like leaning towards vanity metrics and vibes is not strong ground to be on. As you move up though, and I'm kind of interested that testimonies are so low in this list, but as we look at like behavior change, this like belies like you need a strategy now. This is like you need something that verifies this. How do you measure work done? You can say screens made. How do you measure behavior change? You have to talk to users. There's like a measurement aspect of this that becomes really powerful. And then you get to see that change over time. And then you even get into up here where it's like business value and finance, which I think is the ultimate goal, right? Is for every business to become $1 billion business and to like succeed wildly. And if you can directly say, if you can draw this chart and say, the work and effort that I did can be measured by the behavior change of users, which has led to business goals and objectives being met, including revenue, reduction in churn, etc., then like you are at peak value because you're doing the business thing as a designer on your own. And I would say that AI can do parts of this, but AI probably can't do all of the strategy without someone to guide it and to kind of be a part of it. And this is where you get to be the person who's directing the tools underneath you to accomplish this, because this is nebulous, right? You're talking about work done. You can do this work in code. You can do it in Figma. That's fine. Behavior changes at the person level, though. This is working with the humans. And so this area, when we're talking about like the user experience, this is the user experience realm. This is the human realm that we focus on. So, Nate, I'm running at my hard stop.
I too have to take off. And are there any other questions out there that we haven't gotten? I know Nuts and Butter also asked about how to pivot into healthcare. I don't have a quick answer for that other than lean into transferable skills. There's also a conversation in there about like if you're pivoting from a industry that's too far from healthcare, then you could also get into a middleman tertiary. That's not the right word. Some sort of middleman role that then better positions you to pivot. But those are the two quick answers for you.
I've got the perfect answer for this, Nate, and I want you to clip it, okay?
I'm ready.
I like to speak to any designer out there right now who's trying to break into the healthcare industry, knowing that it's really tough and difficult. Fortunately, I have a very good friend. His name is Nate Bauer. This is his website at nabauer.com. If you want to get into the healthcare industry as a designer, what you should do is go to this website and go ahead and click this contact button and just send him a message and ask for internships and roles with him and just kind of spam him until he finally acquiesces and gets it. You can also follow him on LinkedIn. You can take his resume, you could copy his resume and apply to jobs as well. And that will help you get into the healthcare industry as a designer today.
It's good advice. Aditya is noting that we missed a question. Tim, I can hang out and answer Aditya's question. Do you have to take off?
Let's answer it. Let's get this done. Let's close it out. Let's close it out.
If you are a designer worked in different domains of design, little of everything, including UX, how to position yourself for product design role? requires a little bit of a definition, first and foremost. The difference between UX, UI, product design. Tim, I've got a hot take. I
do the hot take.
think the titles UX design and UI design are going away. And I think product design is consuming both of those. Any challenges with that?
I don't have any direct challenges with it. Let's talk about this as a scale, though. And we're going to say, we are going to preface this by saying no job on here is inherently better or worse than other jobs. First of all, okay, like let's just get that out there. So like whether you're product, research, graphic, or I'm also going to put one up here for a business. Just know that we respect each of these equally, and this is not about measuring. If you're in one of these, you should definitely get out of the other one. But we generally look at this as like a scale on like terms of strategy and like knowing where your strategy needs to be and kind of where you fit in. So what we see over time, and maybe researcher and product need like to be switched a little bit. But
researcher's a funky
as
word. I would almost put like adjacent.
Yeah.
I don't know where to put it on the
maybe
scale.
Like on top. Maybe on top of it. It's a tough one. I'm gonna keep it. We'll keep it right here. So it's kind of in this space. When we talk about like a business role, like this would be like a CEO or an executive. When you think about the stuff that these people are worried about, it's super high level strategy. They want to talk about like business initiatives, general plans, and their awareness is pretty in depth in terms of strategy. When you go down to the bottom of this chart, graphic design is a little more focused on individual things you're accomplishing and has like a very specific domain. And as you go up in titles, typically the level of autonomy and like what you're working with in terms of strategy and ultimately business outcomes increases slightly. So like a graphic designer could be focused on like marketing outcomes and like certain marketing initiatives. UI designers might be in charge of like designing the interface of a whole product, which is a really big surface. And then a UX designer might be in charge of not only how does the platform look, but like why does the platform work the way it works? Does it work in a good way? Then eventually you get towards like a product mindset. And product mindset is saying, what's the best thing for the business? What's the best thing for the user? And then how do we put those in the same boat together? And so you just kind of spread these things out over time. Each of these is very important functions, but ultimately they are increments of solving the same problem, which is the business goal. They all want to solve these business goals, just they do it in a slightly different way and with slightly different levels of responsibility. And we see AI is helping people develop skills horizontally in such a way that a graphic designer can now do a lot of UI design together. And a UX designer can do a lot of UI design and a lot of like research product design together. And so we have like this, the overlap here is increasing a lot more because of AI skills. And we find that the person who is maybe stands to gain the most from this are people in this product design space because they are looking at two different lenses at the same time. They're able to kind of combine all these things and they attach, if we go back to our value, they're the people who don't stop here at behavior change. They also look at business metrics. And so their perceived value can be extraordinarily high when they're doing their job the correct way, which we hope they are. And so it almost seems like some of these roles for UX, UI, maybe not graphic as much, but kind of people who are not able to connect to the value of behavior change and business metrics for cleanly are starting to disappear a little bit or be swallowed up more like inside of this. So these all become product functions instead of their own teams. All right, you can counter that.
I have no arguments. I
it.
I actually really liked the way you succinctly described. Well, I think you mimicked what I was describing, that UX and UI titles are disappearing in favor of product, who are now consuming those roles thanks to new AI initiatives. I can also see product management potentially. There's like a new role. A new role is coming out. I don't know what it looks like, but it's, well, I know what it looks like. I don't know what it's called. It's a mix between product design and product management. That new role is coming out. I don't know what to call it yet.
I don't know either. I just know that when we're talking about project managers, they're typically people who are working at scale And when it comes to managing people and problems at scale, AI helps them a lot. And so project managers also gain a lot of power through AI functions. Unfortunately, a lot of teams are looking at project managers as a requirement because a team is large rather than a requirement for quality products. And so when they can remove some of the problems that lead people to hire project managers get hired less. So project managers are also adapting by going downstream a little bit. They are including a lot of product functions inside their job functions to stay competitive, which we love. We love that. We should be welcoming. We should welcome them and work with them, not see them as antagonistic to the field, because we're all people trying to do this together.
Yeah, I like that thought. I do want to clarify that I was speculating a combination of product design and product manager. In the agile space, we don't have much need for project managers, and the roles are slightly different there. But I still agree with your mindset.
I was totally wrong, guys, is what Nate is saying very politely.
No, not at all. I think you're totally right.
Look at that Midwestern kindness.
Does the PNW count as the Midwest? No, surely not.
It does, Nate. That's common knowledge.
No, it's
Everyone
the
knows that.
Pacific Northwest. It's the PNW. Midwest is like Montana, right? Nebraska, Idaho. Idaho neighbors Washington, and we still try to disassociate from them. All right. Friends, appreciate the time. There are 20 of you that have remained. Listen to Tim and I spiel about whatever. Would love to see you again for Feedback Friday, every Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I'll add our YouTube channel in the chat for the last plug of the day, and I'm going to go get food. Tim, good hanging out with you. Appreciate the time.
Everyone drink water. Drink lots of water before the AI drinks the water. But go ahead, drink some water. Make sure you stretch, guys. Touch grass. Do all the stuff, and we will see you next week. I'm going to go ahead and end this all. I'm going to end it all. Farewell, everyone.
See ya.